43, and now match 6. The numbers are 15.
Hey, and good evening, everybody. My apologies for the brief delay as we got things up and running here on Philadelphia Live on Fox Local. A lot going on both here on the stream as well as on air. For people who are breaking away from watching some baseball to jump on with us so we can get you caught up on all the things that are going on throughout the area. And that's a lot. I'm Bill Anderson here in one of our Fox 29 control rooms and studios. Very happy to be here. Happy Friday as we head into what promises to be a pretty nice weekend. It's not going to be all sunny, but Drew has told us about some nice weather that is coming up in the very near future. We just got to get through the first couple of days, the first couple hours. Like if we can get through today into Saturday, and then Saturday we're expecting the weather to be very nice. Continuing to build throughout the weekend, and then we hit a little bit of a cold front, but I keep telling people that calling it a cold front now is a little different after the gut punch that we handled about 3 weeks ago. Now, cool, what they're calling it, or chilly, means 40. I'll take that after 3 weeks where you had snow and ice and temperatures and a lot of circumstances that were single digits. So we will get into that momentarily as Drew comes on and tells us everything that's going on with weather. There was a historic homegoing service today for civil rights leader Reverend Jesse Jackson. And obviously the name became synonymous with so much, from civil rights to political action to empowerment. He touched the lives of so many individuals over the course of his life. And so today at his homegoing service, we heard from multiple former presidents. We heard from vice presidents. We heard from dignitaries and leaders themselves. And so over the next couple of hours, here on Philadelphia Live, we're going to get you caught up. For the people who perhaps didn't hear some of these impactful and powerful statements that were made throughout the day, we're going to share some of them with you as well. We also had President Trump, who was taking on what has evolved into, a fairly controversial issue, and that is college sports. He had a roundtable discussion with some powerhouse names, the commissioners of the NBA and other leagues were all there with the president talking about what they do with college sports now that it has kind of evolved or devolved depending on your perspective, but it certainly has changed in the era of NIL and students who are now deciding, or college athletes who are deciding to stay in school as opposed to even pursuing opportunities in professional sports, because many of them are making more money in college because of NIL and marketing deals than they do when they make it to the pros. So that is one of the things that we will explore and discuss a little bit later on, as well as updates from what's going on with Iran. There are some pretty cool stories locally that we'll explore, some of them a little odd. But first, let's go ahead, as I kind of gave you a little taste of it, but let's get to the expert as to what we can expect. Drew, I'm selling it that the weather is going to be pretty nice as we head into the weekend.
Yeah, so the temperatures, they're going on the rise. And listen, that's all we can hope for. We started the week with highs in the 30s. Now, okay, let's not oversell this, all right, Bill? It's not perfect this weekend. The clouds are sticking around, but at least it's dry during the daylight hours. So, take a look at some of these temperatures. We got the mid-50s for your Saturday. We got the mid-60s for your Sunday. And then, oh yeah, there's the light at the end of the tunnel. We got some sunshine, and we're looking forward to the sunshine and 70s as we head into the upcoming week. That sun can't come soon enough, right? We've had these clouds for days now, and it's just been so gloomy, and everyone's like tired and sick of it. And you know what the best part about that really sunny Monday is? Besides that 70-degree temperature, How about a later sunset so we can just soak up the sun? Yeah, we're talking a sunset at 7:01 p.m. The reason for that, we're changing the clocks this weekend. So Saturday into Sunday, we change the clocks. We're not going to see the sun set on Sunday, but we sure get it on Monday. Now, all right, the one inconvenience is that sunrise time. That one's coming in a little later now. We go from about 6:30 to 7:30 as we start our day, as we head in to the first, I guess second week of March. I was going to say first full week of March, but March 1st was a Sunday, so what am I saying? We're just moving it along, moving those calendar pages. So it gets even better as we keep moving those pages along on the calendar. So check this out. We go from 70 on Monday to soaring to 78 come Wednesday. But you know the story, right? What goes up comes down. That's how it works. So I got to show you the other side of the seesaw. Down our temperatures go as we head toward the end of the week. So this is your warning. Don't get used to these 70s. Don't get excited when we see the numbers close to 80 degrees in the middle of the week, because down they go. And oh, do you see that icon right there? Let's take a closer look at that. So a couple days now, one of the future radars has been saying a little bit of snow for the Ides of March. What did Caesar say? Beware the Ides of March. So March 15th, that's the Sunday right before St. Patrick's Day. A couple of the models want a little bit of snow, like an inch or two of snow. Here's the deal. I don't buy it. You know, we're more than a week out. What the bottom line is, we just got a temperature tug of war in that 7-day forecast. We soar and then we fall. We rise and we fall. That's what March is all about. This is what happens this time of the year. But I'll tell you what, that stretch in the 70s, it can't come soon enough. You know what I'm saying? That's what it's all about, Bill.
Yes, I will take it. I'm all on board with it. I'm not going to live in the future. I'm going to embrace the present. We will soak up those 70s, and we'll figure out the future when we get there.
Love it.
Right now, let's soak it up with the 70s. Drew, thank you. We'll check in with you in a little bit. I love it. Just good news. Going into the 70s. What may happen down the road, we'll worry about that later. This is Philadelphia Live on Fox Local. And as I was saying, throughout the day on multiple platforms, we were celebrating the life of Reverend Jesse Jackson. So many people were there to speak, to recognize him, to remember the impact that he made on society. So let's listen to one of those speeches, starting with former President Barack Obama.
It's good to be home. I love you back. The book of Isaiah. Where are you at? Now, see, I believe in the Constitution. The book of Isaiah God is looking for a messenger to guide a hardened and resistant people. And the Lord asks, whom shall I send? And who will go with us? To which Isaiah replies, here I am, Lord. Send me. To Mother Jackson and the Jackson family, to President and Mrs. Biden, President and Secretary Clinton, Vice President Harris, Pastor Dates, my old friend, though he looking good, Reverend Meeks, Reverend Jenkins. It is an honor to join you today to celebrate the Reverend Jesse Louis Jackson, a man who, when the poor and the dispossessed needed a champion, and a country needed healing, stepped forward again and again and again and said, "Send me." Reverend Jackson's immense gifts were apparent at an early age, even if his circumstances conspired to try to hold him back. Born out of wedlock to a teenage mom, growing up under the oppressive cloud of segregation, confined to schools, sports facilities, movie theaters that were separate and unequal. It was a world where on Thanksgiving he'd have to wait for his mother to come home on the bus carrying leftovers from the dinner she had to cook for somebody else. A world designed to tell a child that he or she could only go so far. That to think otherwise would be foolish or dangerous, and that wisdom required you to accept your lot in life. And young Jesse refused to accept that verdict. He was a born leader, an athlete, a talker, knew how to talk, star quarterback, student body president. He could have succeeded within the confines that were determined for him and had a successful life. But like so many of his generation, so many extraordinary civil rights leaders in the late 50s and 60s, that Joshua generation, he instinctively understood that individual success meant nothing unless everybody was free. So he became inspired by the bus boycotts in Montgomery. He led 7 black students into the whites-only library, sitting down and getting arrested for reading. Think about that. The library closed, but then it reopened. And when it did, it was open to everyone. "Send me," Jesse said, even as a young man, and the world got a little bit better. By the time Reverend Jackson graduated from college, he had attended Chicago Theological Seminary. He knew the nature of his calling, and he became, as everybody knows, the youngest member of SCLC, assigned to lead Operation Breadbasket here in Chicago, right around the time that Isaiah Thomas is talking about. And it was during this period, and especially after Dr. King's death, when the optimism of the early movement had begun to fade and leadership had begun to fracture, and when the country seemed to have grown bored, gotten weary of the idea of justice and equality, and moved on to other concerns, that Reverend Jackson rose above despair and kept that righteous flame alive. Through Operation Push, he led boycotts and challenged corporate policies around hiring and contracting, recognizing that civil rights without economic justice was an empty promise. He backed unions in their organizing efforts and activists in fair wage campaigns, understanding that if the have-nots and the have-little bits ever learned to make common cause across racial lines instead of fighting each other over breadcrumbs, everybody would benefit. He helped register millions of voters. He fought against biases in the criminal justice system. He drew attention to local abuses of power and called folks at the national level to account. And by the early 80s, he was delivering that message of change and hope across the globe, freeing hostages from captivity, fighting to end apartheid in South Africa. And then, in 1984, as the powers that be in Washington were rolling back hard-won progress, slashing the social safety net, when more and more folks were getting left behind, and greed was being trumpeted as a virtue. See, we've been there before. He stepped forward once again and said, "Send me." He ran for the presidency of the United States of America. I had just graduated from college during that first campaign. And I was living in New York at the time. I was working to pay off my student loans, eating a lot of tuna fish and Campbell soup. And if I went to a diner, I'd grab some extra crackers, put them in my pocket. And I was inspired by the civil rights movement. And I had in my mind to work for social justice. But even though I was full of good intentions, I was uncertain of how to serve and fighting off self-doubt. And I remember how, at the time, plenty of people, including, plenty of black folks, were dismissing Jesse's chances, suggesting, oh, he just wants attention, he can only get black votes. But then I remember one night sitting in my janky apartment, and I got an old black and white TV with the rabbit ears, and I'm kind of jiggering around, and it's about this big. I know young people can't imagine, but the TV was about this big. And I'm watching the Democratic primary debate between him and Walter Mondale and Gary Hart. And I remember how, when that debate was over, I turned off that TV and I thought the same thing that I know a lot of people thought that night, even if they didn't want to admit it. That in his ideas, in his platform, in his analysis, in his intelligence, in his insight, Jesse hadn't just held his own. He had owned that stage. He wasn't an intruder. He wasn't a pretender. He belonged on that stage. And the message he sent to a 22-year-old child of a single mother with a funny name, an outsider, was that maybe there wasn't any place, any room where we didn't belong. And that message of fairness and dignity, of justice and hope, that's what the Rainbow Coalition was all about. In 1984, and then again in 1988, Jesse didn't just speak to black folks, he spoke to white folks and Latinos and Asian Americans and the first Americans. He spoke to family farmers and environmentalists. He spoke to gay rights activists when nobody was talking to gay rights activists and blue-collar workers. And he gave them the same message, that they mattered, that their voices and their votes counted. He invited them to believe. He invited us to believe in our own power to change America for the better. By the delegate count, Jesse's two candidacies ultimately came up short. But he paved the road for so many others to follow. Doug Wilder became the first elected black governor. Carol Moseley Braun went to the U.S. Senate. Because of Jesse, the Democratic Party changed its rules, ending the winner-take-all distribution of delegates during presidential primaries, which meant underdogs and outsiders like Bill Clinton or Bernie Sanders could stay competitive and build momentum instead of getting knocked out early. And it was because of that path that he had laid, because of his courage, his audacity, that 2 decades later, a young black senator from Chicago's South Side would even be taken seriously as a candidate for the presidential nomination.
Hearing from President Barack Obama, who gave and that was just a piece of it. Obviously there is more, but President Barack Obama, who gave a stirring statement at the homegoing service and the celebration of life of Reverend Jesse Jackson that happened today. We will listen to, there were a lot of powerful statements, powerful speeches, and we will listen to some of them throughout the next couple hours on Philadelphia Live. Of course, we will get you caught up on everything that is going on in the news, and that's where we will go next. She has continued to keep us updated with what's going on with the developments in Iran and what's going on around Iran and evacuations and people trying to get home. And our Chelsea Torres has the latest. Good evening, Chelsea.
Hey there. Hi, Bill. Yeah, I could tell you, I mean, we've seen the State Department put out messaging for people, for Americans in the Middle East, that if they need assistance, they have a number to call, they have a website to go to, but there's also this private security firm that's based in Northern Virginia, and they're doing it all on their own, but it's costly, mind you. This group, they work very fast. Within hours of the first U.S. and Israeli strikes on Iran, this group was able to execute an evacuation plan for 2 American students straight out of Dubai.
Within about 4.5 hours from the phone call, we had our teams in motion to go pick these people up, and it was 2 college-age women. Put them in the car. We were able to then move to the Omani border, and by 8 hours, we were at the border, worked through the border checkpoint to a hotel in Muscat where we could stop, give them a short rest while we arranged their transportation home.
It's a 24/7 operation for the team in Northern Virginia, and they offer their services in over 140 countries. In fact, a Global Guardian team just helped get Americans out of Mexico during the cartel violence there. They've also done emergency response after natural disasters like Hurricane Helene in North Carolina. Global Guardian works with people on the ground in evacuation zones to coordinate ways out. Many are locals who then connect with the firm's clients and escort them to safety.
We have to create a narrative of here's the pickup point, here's the key crossing site, this is what you're going to need from a paperwork standpoint legally, and then we're going to put you in a hotel or straight into a commercial flight. Most likely at this point in the war, we're going to put you on a private charter.
So I told you it's not cheap. It does come at a cost. For example, a family of 5 can get a $15,000 membership for the year, but anyone who's stranded can also just call their hotline. However, Global Guardian does say the price varies depending on the evacuation. And Bill, earlier today, the State Department announced that they've assisted 13,000 Americans since the conflict began, and at this point they're still urging people to call their emergency assistance number if they need any ground transportation or flight assistance. Bill.
Chelsea, that's both fascinating and really scary. I mean, the way that they're able to go through the process of getting that done, and you experienced it and spoke with them, is really impressive. It's just alarming that there's a need for it.
And I mean, at this rate, Bill, I know earlier we had said 3,000 people they've evacuated. 4,000 people is now the latest number I've been told by Global Guardian, and that's just in the past 7 days. So you can imagine the logistics going behind these operations. They have people on the ground. They're getting them across border checkpoints. I mean, when we were talking to them, they were saying that this can be some of the worst days for these people because, again, many of us have never had to deal with an ongoing conflict, seeing missiles, hearing sirens going off. So for a lot of these Americans and just people around the world that are trying to get out, it's a scary situation. So they're definitely doing everything they can to help people in need at this time.
Yeah, it really is. And as you pointed out, these are not generally our day-to-day realities. So to see this type of thing going on, again, it's interesting, but it also makes you hopefully be a little bit empathetic about the type of things that people in other areas deal with more consistently. Chelsea, thank you. We appreciate it. We will check in with you a little bit later on. That was a really interesting story and just kind of the reality that people face every day. It's eye-opening to us because we don't. And now you have individuals who are and kind of trying to figure out how to navigate all that. Let's take a quick break. This is Philadelphia Live on Fox Local. Some more of our reporters up. Our Jill Croce is next, talking about some really cool technology that is developing in our area that will help the medical field. We've got that and more. So stay put. It's Philadelphia Live on Fox Local, all streaming platforms, TikTok, Facebook, YouTube. If you're there, we're there. We'll be right back. 7:30 here, Philadelphia Live on Fox Local. As I pointed out, we're also streaming on all streaming platforms. So the Fox 29 TikTok page, the Fox 29 YouTube page, the Fox 29 Facebook page, and as you can see periodically scrolling behind me is the update tracker for my social media at Bill A. Fox 29. We have questions of the day that are up there so that you can interact with us. We also have a Go Vote that is up, and we will explain that to you momentarily as we continue to make our way through the evening, getting updates on everything that is taking place. As I often point out, if it's going on, we're there. And our Jill Croce is up next with some pretty cool technology that's being developed in our area. Hey, Jill.
Hey there, good evening to you. So this is really cool technology, and it's happening over at Penn Engineering. Of course, they're a hub for research, and this is just another example of that. Now, they actually have these micro robots. They've been working on them and fine-tuning them since about 2016, and it just keeps getting better and better with the eventual goal to have these be used in places like the medical field to really transform it. Now, in terms of size, it's 200 by 300 by 50 micrometers. That's less than a grain of salt, just for comparison. And it's really packed with the computer and ways to move. And they've been testing this. So it's really cool technology. And they, like I said, hope to use this in the medical field. And they have ones that have legs that can like walk around in certain environments, but they also have ones that use physics and their magnetic field, and they're able to just move through water. So it's really cool stuff. And if you look at it, if you were to like put it on your finger, it would just like rest on the ridges of your finger. So just to show like how small it really is. So they're really still fine tuning this. It's nowhere near complete. But some of the fields that they would really like to see this technology being used are, I want to make sure I get this right for you guys, in dental work. So it would like be around your teeth, blood clots, cancer at the cellular level. So catching it before it gets worse. And right now it can hold 4,000 bits of information, and it's super tiny and it's super cheap to make. They said because they make it in like mass amounts and it's so small, it's less than a penny to make it. So that's why they think it would have a great success rate, because usually when you think of robots, you think of it costing a lot of money, and this is really less than a penny to make, but yet it's packed with all that technology. So this could really, in the future years, really transform how we approach cancer and things like that. So it's going to be really exciting to see how they continue to work on this.
Yeah, it's fascinating. I mean, I know that they still have work to do. It's fascinating that they're even capable of doing this. So they're building this up, and these kind of robots are small enough that they could go in and perform on a cellular level.
Yes, and it's super cool. I saw it under the microscope today, and it's just, technology is incredible, and it's scary too, like fear of the unknown, right? But it's really cool that this is happening here in Philadelphia. Also, they're partnering with the University of Michigan to make this possible, so it's really cool to see how it's coming together.
All right, and Jill, before we let you go, so you got a chance to talk to some of the people. How impressive are these people who are pulling all this together?
Oh my goodness. I was like, when I was doing my interview, I was like, say it for the common like person, because I'm not going to understand it. I don't have a science brain. That's why I'm in journalism. But so it was really cool to just hear about it in a way that I could understand. So coming up at later tonight, you're going to hear it from a way that you at home can understand too, because you're probably more like me than them.
I am not the least bit offended by that comment. I absolutely do not have science brain. I don't understand it at all. We were sitting there watching the video, and I'm just looking at it like, whoa, that's pretty cool. But listen, I'm glad we have people like that. Thank you very much, Jill. We'll check in a little bit.
Me too. They make the world a better place.
I know, right? All right, so we showed a little bit of Jill's video, but you will see more of it as it continues to, or we continue to go through the evening. Before we take our next break, let's get back to, we were listening to former President Barack Obama, his comments as it relates to the Reverend Jesse Jackson at his homegoing service. Let's get back to it.
I still credit that first run of Jesse's and Harold Washington's campaign for drawing me to Chicago. And I didn't know anybody when I first arrived. And I was working as a community organizer, as it so happens, in neighborhoods right around here. Roseland, Woodlawn, Alt Gill, West Pullman. And I'm meeting these young preachers like Meeks and some crazy priest named Flager. And I guess Jenkins was running around, but he's kind of young. He came a little bit later, so I'm going to churches and I'm listening to all these amazing preachers and it was hard work, and half the time I didn't know what I was doing, and progress was slow, and I definitely didn't know how I was going to survive these Chicago winters, because I grew up in Hawaii. But I do remember heading to the Push headquarters some Saturday mornings to listen and learn from Reverend Jackson. And y'all remember how on some mornings, if there was a major issue going on, the room would be packed to the rafters. And sometimes some celebrity just wanders in. And then some mornings it was kind of low-key. Either way, though, the announcements would be made, and Reverend Barrow would say a prayer, and just he'd sit there, and then finally he'd gather himself up and stand, and he'd start kind of slow, you know. And sometimes he'd talk kind of low, so you couldn't quite catch what he was saying. So everybody lean in. And over time, it was that same boundless energy that would emerge, and that same passion and that same insight. And he'd offer you a master class in economics on a Saturday morning. And he'd give you a seminar in American history and American politics. And he'd make complicated things plain. And he'd tell stories that would make you laugh one minute and cry the next. And whether you were a bus driver or a teacher or a business leader or a young organizer, you came away from those meetings with a better understanding of how the world worked, how power worked. And more importantly, he made you believe that if we came together, we could make the world work better. Now, we've been talking about Jesse telling us we are somebody. I am somebody. And he wasn't just talking to young black boys like Isaiah, though he loved them fiercely. He wasn't just talking to young black girls to help them believe, though he believed in them. He was talking about everyone who was left out, everyone who was forgotten, everyone who was unseen, everyone who was unheard. And in that sense, he was expressing the very essence of what our democracy should be. The ideals at the very heart of the American experiment. The belief that regardless of what we look like or how we worship, regardless of where our ancestors come from or how much money we got, we're all part of the American family. We're all endowed with the same inalienable rights to life and liberty and the pursuit of happiness. We're all obligated to answer the call and step forward and take responsibility for making wrongs right and for caring for our neighbors and bringing the reality of America a step closer to its glorious ideals. And answering that call isn't always easy. And Reverend Jackson and his family knew that better than most. To do what he did, He would endure all kinds of hatred and setbacks and betrayals and doubters and death threats. He would sacrifice, as Jim Reynolds pointed out, the leisure and comfort of what was available to him as a far more financially secure life. And those sacrifices were not his alone. They were shared by his wife and his children. And they bore that burden with grace and strength. I got to know the Reverend and his family over the years, and as I watched his children follow his example of service, I came to appreciate the conviction that drove him, that he had passed on, the faith that guided him and that he had passed on. And it was a faith that didn't waver, a flame that burned bright, even as his body began to fail. The last time he and I had a chance to visit in person, he was already ailing. It was getting difficult for him to stand, difficult for him to speak. We were in Hyde Park, in a hotel room. I embraced him and figured we'd just have a low-key visit. Maybe he'd need some rest. And he starts coming up with this project and this initiative and issues I needed to look into. And here's some commentary that he would suggest, and some phrasing that he thought might work, and maybe we might co-write an article.
That is a good place to pause that discussion, just reflecting on the spirit of who Reverend Jesse Jackson was as a pretty impressive and emotional homegoing service took place today. We've been listening to President Obama, but so many other people spoke and celebrated his life, and we'll get into more of that. We also had a really interesting roundtable that happened today with President Trump and several other leaders from the sports community about what to do with college sports. So there's a lot going on, and that actually is a good segue into sports. Our Breland Moore is here, ready to break it all down. Hey, Breland, how are you?
Hi, I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. I don't know, I didn't get a chance to see very much of it, but it was interesting when they were talking about this round table of how to fix sports, or college sports. I was kind of seeing, does everybody agree that college sports is broken? Do you kind of fall into that category?
I definitely think NIL needs a little bit of barriers, but I also thought it was really curious that not one current college athlete was invited to that roundtable. So I'm not really entirely sure how someone can, know the proper landscape without getting the actual people affected involved. But other than that, I don't. I definitely think something needs to be done here about the NIL. There's kind of a little bit of a free-for-all going on. College athletes deserve to make money off their name, image, and likeness, and deserve to profit just like anybody else. In terms of, you can be an influencer at Temple University and be making thousands of dollars, but you can't profit off of your own image when you're a college athlete. It doesn't really make enough sense. And so there definitely needs to be some barriers. But yeah, a little bit confusing to me when I saw that list that there were no current students that are impacted by this on that.
It's a really interesting point, and I hadn't even thought about that. Like, you saw people like Adam Silver sitting there, and there are people who have a vested interest in doing something
right.
about NIL because their business model profits if these young people are not making money while they're there. So it's an interesting point. We'll listen to some of it going forward. But right now, on Fox 29, we've got baseball. Is this exciting? Are you all in?
Well, it hasn't started yet. So it's at 8 o'clock tonight. It's the United States against Brazil. Your heavy hitters, unfortunately, it's murderer's row for poor Brazil. You got Aaron Judge, you got Bryce Harper, you got guys like Kyle Schwarber. There's so many different talent, on this United States team, really loaded. And I think they had the opportunity to be able to go the distance. But they start tonight, 8 p.m. I'm super excited. Jason and I spent a whole half hour talking about it on the Fantastic Sports Show about how excited that we were. So hopefully y'all at home caught that a little bit. But yeah, it's definitely going to be a blast.
Well, and I saw that level of enthusiasm. It's interesting because you've got all-star teams, but you've got all-star teams in a situation where the players actually care about the game. Like that should be entertaining for all of us when you get that much talent together and they're actually playing for pride and bragging rights.
Yeah, and hopefully, a lot of these guys can use this as a springboard for their regular season. Now, you've gotten a little bit of, there's some minor league talent for some of these other teams. Brazil has a 17-year-old pitcher on their roster, and I'm sure if he has to go against the likes of who I just mentioned, it's going to be a really long day for him. But yeah, I think it's really, really fun, and I know that the players enjoy it. It kind of, just their reactions remind me of them being little kids, going back out and being able to just play with pride for their country. But hopefully a lot of these guys like Bryce Harper, who did not have an elite season last year, can, go out, hit the ground running in this World Baseball tournament, and then be able to parlay that into a really great regular season here as well. So hopefully we'll see some good action in the WBC.
Let's hope. That's coming up a little bit later on. We talked yesterday about the hockey deadline, and the Flyers did make some moves.
Yes, it wasn't the move that anyone expected. Rasmus Ristolainen still very much rostered on the Flyers. However, they did do some minor movement here. Bobby Brink, of course, being the most notable trade. He goes to the Minnesota Wild in exchange for a defenseman. And Nick Deslauriers also shipping out here. He goes to the Hurricanes in exchange for a 7th round 2027 conditional pick. There was also some minor league movements here, but all in all, I don't really think this is any sort of blockbuster trade or decision by Danny Briere and company that is going to just really propel this team into the postseason. They are who they are, and this is just movement for the future.
So what's the message out of that? That they're accepting it kind of is what it is. This may not be our year.
Yeah,
we'll tweak a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, just what I just said, that it's a move for the future. Danny Briere basically stressed that this is very much a future type of deal, that they are not in a win now situation, but they told us that at the beginning of the season that playoffs was not the goal. The goal is to continue to build, and that's, according to Danny Briere, what was done today.
Okay. Braylon, I appreciate it. We will check in a little bit. That's interesting. In Philly, you normally can't get away with saying playoffs are not the goal. We're building for the future. But I guess you set the expectations.
Well, luckily no one's really paying attention to the Flyers, so.
I want to say it. I got a Brashear jersey.
He's not been in the league for 14 years, probably.
Okay, that's good knowledge by you.
I don't actually know. I'm just shooting in the dark. Yep.
It may actually be more than that, but we'll
probably.
See. All right, we'll check in with you in a little bit. Thank you. Let us know what happens as there are updates in baseball. I think I'm going to have to get another Flyers jersey because I can't keep going back to the well on my Donald Brashear jersey. As proud as I am of it, it is hanging up in our sports department right now. I got to get another one so I can go ahead and puff out my chest and show my support for the orange and the black. Let's take a quick break, and then we will be back. This is Philadelphia Live on Fox Local. We're going to touch base on that roundtable that I was talking about in college sports coming up in just a second, so stay tuned. And it's 7:50 Philadelphia Live on Fox Local and all streaming platforms, guys. We're also streaming live on Fox 29 TikTok page, Facebook page, YouTube page, and all of those places have the ability for you to jump in the chat. You can comment, you can tell us things that you would like us to discuss or explore, and you can answer our questions of the day. We're going to listen in on this roundtable, and then we will come back and Jake can tell us the question that we are focusing on, our Go Vote, or you can head on over to fox29.com/Go Vote, Fox Local tab, answer the question of the day, and we'll explore some of your questions. I also have one up on my page, @BillAFox29. It is an interesting debate that's going on social media as a local Girl Scout troop set up their Girl Scout cookie sale outside of a cannabis dispensary. And it has sparked a discussion and debate. There are several comments going on my social media, so we will hear from you there as well. But first, as Breland and I were just talking about, President Trump hosted a roundtable of sports professionals, commissioners of various leagues, and they were exploring and discussing what they have to do to save college sports. Let's take a look.
It was a horrible, incredible ruling, and it threw the sports world and the college athletic world into tithers. And that's where we are right now. It's crazy things are happening. Young people are being signed, 17-year-old quarterbacks, for $12 million, $13 million, $14 million. We have a 7-year freshman. You know, we have people, we're seeing things that we've never seen before. We have college players that don't want to go to the NFL because they're making more money in college, right, Jim Jordan? And a lot of really bad things are happening. But basic questions like who is eligible to play are now virtually unregulated and decided randomly by judges rather than by reasonable, agreed-upon rules that could be very simple and very simply drawn. So this has grown into a major challenge. We actually have some of the best sports agents here because I think they'd like to see it solved, but maybe not. I'm not 100% sure about that. But they're represented. We have everybody represented today, just about every group you can think of. But it's grown into a major challenge that threatens the future of college sports and really colleges themselves, because many are going to go down the tubes. It was announced that Penn State, their athletic division, lost $535 million this last year. Florida State, Ron and I spoke about it, $440 million loss. It was just announced that Rutgers lost $95 million, and they're doing all sorts of things to try and save the ship. And I think those numbers are nothing compared to what's going to happen. This is new. This just happened. Those numbers are going to go to levels that nobody's ever seen before. If you had no salary cap in the NFL, you'd see staggering losses. We have no salary cap in colleges. Colleges are going to have, unless something's done, unless we solve this problem, and I think probably today, and we're going to ask for ideas that, not that we don't have to take months. We'd like to see if we could do it for next season. But we certainly have the brain power. We have tremendous knowledge, far more knowledge than I have about this subject. But it also poses special dangers for women's sports and our Olympic pipeline. Women's sports are being canceled all over the country, just so we understand. Women's sports are in deep trouble, other than one particular women's team. That's Miami, where I have my granddaughter on the team. They canceled men's golf, but women's golf is doing just fine. I'm only kidding. But they are canceling golf. They're canceling wrestling. They're canceling fencing. They're canceling even basketball. I thought that would be maybe immune, but it's in trouble. And it's all going to football. But ultimately, football is going to be the worst laggard of all. It's not going to be affordable. And it's going to take down practically every college. In my opinion, it's going to take down virtually every college. or every college that wants to be, they think they want to be competitive. Under the current system, educational institutions find themselves in a financial arms race for athletes in sports like football and basketball, and both of them, but basketball is being hurt very badly. It's being dominated by football. Last July, I signed an executive order to stop destructive pay-for-play schemes that are all over the place and keep college athletics rooted in the traditions that made it great. I thought we had a great system, frankly. I thought we had a system that should have been appealed, and it could have been maybe perfected a little bit. But it took close to 100 years. It was developed over 100 years. And one judge that knew nothing about sports, knew nothing about football, knew nothing about Olympics, knew nothing about anything, just decided everything was unconstitutional. It's crazy. But only Congress now, it looks like, can deliver a permanent fix. So, Speaker, you and John and everybody else, including Democrats that are represented very strongly, we can hopefully get it done. Federal legislation must allow college athletic programs to set common sense rules, simple common sense rules, without endless litigation, and establish a fair name, image, and likeness standard that eliminates the patchwork of conflicting state laws. That's the other problem. All of these colleges, they're all in different states, and all the laws are different. So you got laws that are totally different, some one way, some an entirely different way, while allowing the full spectrum of college athletic programs to thrive. It should thrive. If Congress does not take action fast, it could destroy college sports and destroy the colleges that play these sports. They'll be destroyed. They'll be going bankrupt, everyone, so many of them. No other nation in the world has built a system that develops champions in classrooms and on the field, producing Olympic heroes, professional legends, and the leaders of tomorrow all at once. I thought the system of scholarships was great. What do I know? But I thought it was great. And just one of those things. I was with Nick Saban the other day, and you know, his timing is exquisite. He played and he won and won and won. And when he saw this thing, he said, I'm going to get out of, I'm not doing this anymore. He's around here someplace. Where's Nick? Where are you, Nick? Right? Now, he doesn't admit this. I said, how come you left you didn't want to go through one season? Because there's no better mind at this than that man. And he looked and he said, what a shame. What a shame. And he's going to speak about it. And I think you have some very constructive ideas, Nick. I think so. No other nation in the world has built a system like this. It's so good, and we've thrown it right out the window. And I'd like to see you go back to something maybe resembling that, and maybe pay for each player. Not such crazy pay, but just pay for each player. With every player, maybe the quarterback and the third string lineman making the same. But you're going to tell us about it. We're going to try and get it passed. Our goal is not to go back to the days where student athletes were never allowed to receive any compensation, although not the worst idea, but I think a lot of people would overrule me on that. But we must pass reforms that protect the cherished American tradition of college athletics for future generations. So I look forward to hearing from a lot of you, and I think a few of you are going to say a few words, and then we'll get to some ideas. And I don't know, maybe by the end of a long session, if we need it, I'm here as long as you need me. They came to me, they said, you're the only one that can do it. I said, oh, thank you very much. I said, really, because I'm president, okay, to be honest. But we have certain abilities, so we'll see if we can get it done. So I'll ask in this order, Marco, you'll say a few words, and then Speaker Johnson, Randy Levine, Nick Saban, Charlie Baker, the Governor Ron DeSantis, and Greg Sankey, Sarah Hirschland, and Pete Bavacqua. And they'll go pretty quickly, and then we'll hear from some of the people. And we may have something come up that's somewhat of a miracle. There's an idea out there, and somehow it's going to have to be arrived at, because there's no way this system will allow colleges to, in my opinion, will allow schools to live financially. It's not going to happen.
Philadelphia Philadelphia Live on Fox Local, listening into the beginning of a roundtable that took place this afternoon with President Trump and several individuals who are apparently, in quotes, looking to save college sports. Our sports anchor, Breland Moore, was just on with us and made a very interesting point that you have a bunch of people who, in a lot of circumstances, directly benefit from cracking down on college sports, who were the ones who were sitting at a roundtable, Commissioner of the NBA, college coaches, all trying to address this. We'll get back to that a little bit later on. There are several things going on. We're going to check in with our web team and Cam and the streaming team to find out exactly what's trending. We've got several questions of the day that are up. I was just in the Fox 29 TikTok. Actually, I'm still in there looking at all the comments that are going back and forth. Y'all are pretty active, so we'll be interacting in there as well, live on Fox 29 TikTok, Fox 29 YouTube, and Facebook. And I'm at Bill A. Fox 29. Give us a follow. Let's see what's going on with weather. Let's see what's streaming, and we'll get back to some of the topics of the day. Give us 2 minutes, and we'll be right back. On Fox Local, I'm Bill Anderson, streaming on all platforms, the Fox Local app, and so much more. I'm just in there, as I said, talking to the people on our TikTok page. People were asking questions. So this show is live, Philadelphia Live. The presser with President Trump was previously recorded, and we're airing some of the segments of it. So right now, one of the things that we do in real time, because we're talking to people who are live on the TikTok page and all streaming platforms, is find out what people are interested in, what they're searching, what are the big issues of the day. So from our web team, Cam's Corner, the chat with Cam, the ladies' room, Cam Scrivens joins us. Hey.
Hey Bill, how's it going?
I'm doing well.
Good, good. So listen, it's Friday night. I'm checking the trends, seeing what people in Philly are searching for, and it sounds like you guys are trying to have a night. You're trying to go out because there's a lot of food, restaurants, and bars that are trending in the area right now. Amina, Barstool, the list goes on, and Boramini, a lot of hot spots. It looks like you guys are checking out to see going out or dinner or afterwards. But another story that is also trending on the web right now Bill, you brought this to our attention. There's a Girl Scout troop in New Jersey drawing buzz after their cookie sales skyrocketed because they planted their little station in their shop outside of a cannabis shop in Mount Laurel. So they've gotten some backlash from Girl Scouts because of this, but it is drawing a lot of people to click on the story and see like what's going on. They have a lot of different opinions, and Bill, I know that this is your question of the day.
It is, and people have a lot of interesting perspectives on it. A lot of people are comparing it, and people can vote on our page at Bill A. Fox 29. Also jump in the chat to see what people are saying. Most of the people, Cam, seem to think, like, what's the difference between this and outside of a pharmacy or outside of some other legal business? The young ladies were not inside, they were selling outside and apparently doing very well.
I think they're smart. They're using their brains a little bit for marketing purposes. Last weekend I was in Maryland and there was a Girl Scout troop outside of a liquor store. And you know what? It kind of makes sense. Yeah, maybe somebody wants a little cookie with their wine. I don't know. But Girl Scouts, they don't seem to be too happy about that decision. It looks like the troop, they will not be returning to that cannabis dispensary to sell their cookies. But it is drawing a lot of buzz.
Yeah, it's unfortunate because they were all on board, and the actual dispensary said that they were just trying to support the local troop by letting them set up outside, and their customers wanted it. So what's the issue? But the National Girl Scouts came out and made a statement that they thought that it was inappropriate.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
All right, so you're going to keep track of all this? You jumping in the chat so people can see what's going on?
Absolutely. Yeah, the TikTok live is booming, so we'll see what people are commenting there. Comment what restaurants you guys are visiting this weekend. It is going to be a little nicer, so just let us know. Hit us up on the comments.
Well, you mentioned Barstool. Barstool actually in Philly was trending because of a video that went viral. There was a fight outside of Barstool with one of the bare knuckle fighters, who actually is an undefeated fighter, was caught on video outside of Barstool. So that's why that's trending.
It's another reason why, yes. There's a lot. There's a lot of bars and restaurants trending right now as well as Barstool. So, yeah.
Good.
Philly.
All right. Sounds good. Thank you, Cam.
Thanks, Bill.
And guys, Cam will go ahead and jump into the chat. I'm looking at some of the comments people are posting in TikTok, saying, what was the problem? People were hungry. What's the problem? Too bad for them. We have bigger issues. I would certainly agree with that, but this one is trending. As long as the children are protected and no one is getting hurt, I don't see the problem. These are some of the comments that are going on right now in our Fox 29 TikTok page. All right, so we are going to check in next up with Drew, who is following everything that's going on with weather. And Drew, locally, things are looking pretty good, and we decided to stay in the present because it might get cold in the future.
All right. So listen. March is a temperature tug of war. It goes back and forth. You go cold, you go warm, you go cold. So we're doing a little tug of war here in the 7-day forecast and beyond. But let's get right into it for this weekend. Temperatures are moving in the right direction, but I don't want to oversell anything because the clouds are sticking around, so it'll be staying a little bit chilly, even though temperatures do rise day to day to day. So let's get right into it for just right now. Let's be in the present. So I want you to take a look live in Philadelphia. Notice the clouds are a little bit low right there, right? So some fog's going to develop as the night goes on. You know what fog is? It's just a cloud down at the ground. So those clouds that are kind of low now, they'll just keep getting lower, lower, and lower, and let's keep dipping it low, and that's eventually some fog for us as the evening goes on. So let's talk about some of the numbers when you do step outside. It's chilly this evening. I was thinking about stepping out here, go get some pizza in a minute or two, and I was like, all right, I need my winter coat that's right over here. I got it just off camera. I got this ready here, ready to go. And so there's our numbers in the 40s. They're actually going to hold pretty steady tonight because when you are cloudy, it stops the temperatures from, number one, dropping that far, but also it stops them from dropping fast. So our numbers aren't dropping too far tonight. we're eventually going to drop down to like upper 30s. And you can kind of get the feel for this as you look hour by hour, right? Look how that number holds steady. And that's just the influence of clouds. And the reason that happens is clouds send a lot of heat back down to the ground. You hear a lot about greenhouse gases, all that. You know what a cloud is? It's just a giant area of greenhouse gases. The leading greenhouse gas in our air, it's not carbon dioxide, it's actually water vapor. What's cloud? Big area of humid air, which is water vapor, the gas form of water. So the reason you don't hear a lot of talk about water vapor is, well, it doesn't stay in our air long. Whereas carbon dioxide, percentage of it, about 40% of it, stays in the air for thousands of years. So that's why that's always getting the talk. But anyway, the bottom line is when you have a lot of more greenhouse gases in the air, it just sends heat back down to the ground. But for us on a night like tonight, it's stopping the temperatures from going too far. And we got these numbers in the upper 30s as we take a look right here with a little bit of a foggier picture into Philadelphia. And you can get the vibe. It's pretty unanimous on the temperatures. They're pretty close to each other across the whole region. Think of the differences normally between, say, the Poconos versus down the shore. And we're only talking a degree or two difference. Normally, it'd be like 10 to 15 degree difference between the Poconos at night versus the shore. So when you have clear skies, numbers really drop, and they drop fast. As for your Saturday, well, it's not clear skies. It's another gloomy one. What's new? It sounds like we live in one of these cloudier cities these days. So you're looking at numbers in the mid-50s, which is a bigger improvement from today. Today we got stuck in the 40s. Tomorrow, at least we're getting the mid-50s, even though that'll be chilly with the clouds. And so there's your temperatures as the day goes on. Now, I want to take you into the rest of the weekend. The numbers go up another 10 degrees. We're in the mid-60s, but it's still cloudy on Sunday. And here's what I would say about that. Why that is an improvement, cloudy in 60s is still pretty chilly, but at least we're moving in the right direction. Something else that's moving, that would be the sunset time. So we got the clock change this weekend. So we have a sunset, not that we'll see the sunset on Sunday, at 7 p.m. So I'm liking that vibe. You know, summer's around the corner when you start talking about later sunsets. The flip side is now the sunrise is a little later. So come Monday, we're going to have a sunrise closer to 7:30 instead of 6:30. That's the one I don't like. You know, when it's dark in the morning, I don't want to get up. So there's our Sunday, well above average at that 64 since the average high is in the upper 40s. But this is what Bill and I are talking about. Bring it on. The sun is back, and with that sun, that makes those temperatures jump up. You're looking at 70 degrees come Monday. And look, it's just the start, because check this out, Bill. Put away the coat for the start of the work week. Tuesday, Wednesday, bring it on. And yeah, then it gets kind of cold after that. I mean, again, it is a temperature tug of war this time of the year, so we get a little taste of the good stuff, and then just like that, we say, see ya at the end of that 7-day.
It's not that bad. The see ya is still almost 50 degrees. I feel like, Drew, we've all, at least in this area, we've just been toughened up because of how bad it was for a period of time. So now we see 48, 50, and you're like, I already took your best punch this winter. I'll be all right.
Yeah, you remember when it was negative digits at night and we had that
Yes.
week? It was like over a week, 10 days where we were below freezing, like, period. Like, we were below freezing for 10 straight days. Crazy.
Yeah, it took like 2 weeks for people to stop putting the trash cans and the folding chairs and everything in the parking spaces, trying to hold on after digging out.
Yeah,
now we got through with that.
It never went. It never went anywhere because it stayed cold. It was icy on top, and then finally we're not seeing snow in spots. And yeah, I think if there's any leftover snow piles, they're out of here after Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday.
Drew, I'm afraid to ask this because I'm looking at the chat on TikTok and they have some pretty strong opinions. We were talking earlier. I think we need to be done with this whole daylight savings time thing.
Oh, I'm in. Can I tell you something just between you and me?
What's that?
I can't be bothered in my car to change the clock. So it's going to be wrong for the next 6 months, and then finally it'll get correct again. But I just let it sit. So I'm actually dreading this because I'm going to be too lazy to change it. So if we stop changing the clock, then my clock's actually going to be right, because it blows the mind of my friends. They'll get in the car and they're like, wait, it's this time? And I'm like, no, I just never changed my clock. And they're like, we'll do it for you. I mean, come on, dude. But that's me.
Okay, that was not the scientific approach to the question that I thought I was going to get. But
that's the real life approach, all right?
Just for different reasons. Well, yeah, and the real life approach is like, what's the point? We're not an industrial farming society anymore. It doesn't matter if it gets dark at a certain time.
So, well, that's the flip side, right? You have two different ways of looking at it. Do you stay in daylight or do you stay in standard time? Because the one gets you later sunsets, the one gets you earlier sunsets, but earlier sunrises. So we got to make a decision. Are we okay with an 8:30 a.m. sunrise, or do we want the sunrise to be earlier? So that's the question. I want more sun in the evening. I want to take advantage of sunlight in the evening, you know?
All right, let's do that. Start the petition. We're going to go ahead and see what we
First
can get done.
signature.
All
I'll
right,
put my, I'll put it like John Hancock. I'll put it extra big. I'll put the biggest Drew Anderson at the top of the list.
Now we've
We'll
got
send it
two
to Congress.
signatures. We go ahead and put it in the chat box, and we'll see if they sign it as well. Drew, thank you very much. I appreciate it. We'll check in with you in just a little bit. And as I was pointing out, and Cam pointed out, the questions of the day about that Girl Scout troop that set up their Girl Scout cookie sales outside of a New Jersey cannabis dispensary. It is the question that we've posted on social media. Some of the people, Sherry says in her area, they're not allowed to sell outside dispensaries or liquor stores. Who else? Dame's Girl says, no, this is horrible parenting to allow this to happen. Deb says, go where there's a market to sell, which makes sense. Steph follows up with that, work smarter, not harder. These young ladies are brilliant. And then someone follows up with, would you be comfortable with them outside of a liquor store? It's an interesting point. I mean, outside, there's a lot of, don't grocery stores sell liquor now? So a lot of them are outside of grocery stores selling wine and beer and liquor and what have you. All right, let's take a quick break and we'll be back. It's Philadelphia Live on Fox Local, on Fox 29 TikTok, Fox 29 Facebook, YouTube, all the things. We'll be right back. Philadelphia Live on Fox Local 818. I'm Bill Anderson here in Fox 29 Philadelphia studios, live streaming and getting you caught up on all the things that are taking place. And next up, obviously, it is a day-to-day evolution process about what's going on with this conflict with Iran. But there are other stories that are coming out of this as well, not just the conflict, but multiple airports were closed. People who have been stranded in places all throughout the world are trying to figure out how to get home. And our Chelsea Torres has been looking into the challenges people are facing, and Chelsea's the way that they're overcoming them.
Yeah, absolutely, Bill. You know, we've heard from the State Department, and they said earlier today that they've already assisted nearly 13,000 Americans that are overseas since this conflict started, and they're still letting people know that there's a website and a phone number that they can call if they need help getting out of the Middle East. But another group that's kind of pitching in, doing their own, although it's costly, is a private security firm. They're based out of DC. They're called Global Guardian. They've been doing this for about 14 years now in different situations, from emergency response and, in this case, emergency crisis and evacuations. As of today, they've even been able to evacuate nearly 4,000 people out of the conflict zones. And this is people all over the world, not just Americans, but even today they have 6 evacuations that are ongoing, and each evacuation can be from 2 people to more than 250. So it truly just depends on the scope. But I did get an inside look of the operations, the logistics, everything that they have going on. And Bill, it was pretty interesting just to see how they're able to coordinate with locals on the ground in all of these different countries and able to get people out of certain conflict zones.
So this is like, traditionally, this is like executive type protection. It's not something that is day to day. Like, there's a fairly significant membership fee, and people are just kind of allowed to use this service as needed.
Absolutely, you got that right. It truly is like an insurance plan, if you will, or yes, a private security. So basically what I've learned is that if you're going to go across the ocean, or you're going to go on a trip, or wherever it is that you're going, if you're going to the Middle East and a crisis like this happens, you already know to call Global Guardian, because this is something that you pay for. And Bill, the price is costly. For a family of 5, it can be $15,000 for the entire year. But mind you, if you're in the Middle East right now, the conflict started and you need to get out, you know that your entire family will have an evacuation route to exactly where you want to go at a certain amount of time. But even if you don't have a membership with them and you're not paying a fee on a yearly basis, you can still call them. You can also go to their website, do an intake form, and they'll of course prioritize you. Just know that it's going to be costly. I mean, they have private drivers for these vans that can fill up with people and take you all across the border. You have to have certain documentation. And then if you're trying to get to, say, back to America or to a different country, and you can't just use ground transportation, they will try to get you either on a commercial flight or even a charter flight, which, as you know, has kind of been the one way that a lot of people have been using. But again, that can cost a lot of money.
I don't know if you got a chance to ask them or if you even have the answer to this, but is this kind of the most that they've been used with people trying to get back and forth to the United States? Is that generally their market? It doesn't seem like this particular thing is generally as much of a need in the States.
Yeah, you know, it's interesting, actually. They said that they helped people evacuate, and they also help with emergency response. So during Hurricane Helene in North Carolina just a couple years ago, they were able to help, I can't remember the number, but it was dozens of people that they helped during that time. They just also helped evacuate people from Mexico, from Puerto Vallarta, just a week ago, before this conflict started, so now nearly 2 weeks ago. So they're able to help in so many different situations, of course here in the States as well, but also overseas. As for, is this the largest conflict that they've been able to help? That is such a great question, Bill, and I wish I asked that, and I don't have that answer for you. But I will have to find that out, because I know as of right now, again, more than 4,000 people in 7 days, that's pretty tremendous of what they've been able to do. And they were also able to evacuate people in the 12-day war in June of last year. So again, they've been doing this for 14 years. They have a well-oiled system. But again, it's something that is going to cost you, but it'll keep your family safe, and at least you know you'll get somewhere safe if something were to happen.
And before we let you go, Chelsea, the State Department also has gotten involved. This private company is helping people who are paying for the membership, but the State Department is also engaging in trying to get Americans back home.
Yeah, and as of right now, I know that they're kind of working on still trying to schedule these evacuation flights. But one thing that the CEO had told me, the president of Global Guardian, he said, you know, sometimes at the state and federal level, they're not really able to work at a quick pace with these guys, even when a conflict is not going on, even when there's not a crisis happening. They are still in 140 countries across the world. They have their resources, their manpower, people on the ground that are actively working to make sure if something happens, they can do this on a moment's notice. And so even if the State Department is still working to get those mass evacuation flights out there, Global Guardian is at least doing this within 6 hours. They were already able to evacuate some people over the border away from Dubai. So that just kind of shows how quick they can work.
It's interesting. Thank you, Chelsea. Appreciate it. Appreciate
Thanks,
the
Phil.
update and the information. It actually really is interesting. And when you hear the $15,000 fee that Chelsea put out there, on the surface it sounds like a lot, $15,000. But she said for a family of 5 to ensure a level of protection and the ability to evacuate. Like if you're somebody who regularly is traveling in dangerous situations, or you're a business executive, or you're somebody who just needs that level of protection, $15,000 for a year for a family of 5 for that type of service really is not that unreasonable. I mean, it's expensive to me and maybe expensive to you, but for that service, it is not that unreasonable. Guys, we're going to continue to get things caught up. So Chelsea was just talking about, obviously, the ongoing conflict in Iran. We listened a little bit earlier to President Trump discussing the roundtable with a bunch of individuals trying to, in quotes, fix college sports. But of course, there was the White House press briefing, and Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt was out and about answering questions of all members of the media. Let's listen.
The president said that we're not going through all of this so that we can end up with another Khamenei, and he also said that we can keep this up forever. Does that mean that this current mentality in Iran remains in place? You're going to have to keep doing the fight.
I won't get ahead of the president on broadcasting any timelines. What I will tell you is what President Trump has already laid out, which is that the achievable objectives of Operation Epic Fury we expect to last about 4 to 6 weeks, and we are well on our way to achieving those objectives. Annihilating Iran's navy, we know that we've sunk more than 30 Iranian vessels and ships. Their navy has now been deemed combat ineffective. Taking out the ballistic missile threat that Iran posed to the United States and our troops and bases in the region, we have done a tremendous job. The United States military has done a tremendous job at achieving that objective thus far. Just 6 days in, the retaliatory ballistic missile strikes from Iran are now down 90%. Of course, ensuring Iran can never obtain a nuclear weapon as well, and significantly weakening their proxies in the region, which we know are responsible for the deaths of Americans. And we've seen Hezbollah and the Houthis hardly putting up a fight over the course of the last 6 days. Ultimately, the president has made it very clear he wants to take out the threat of Iran to the United States, and Operation Epic Fury is well on its way to doing that. As for the future of Iran, as the president has pointed to, of course it's in the best interest of the United States of America for Iran to no longer be led by a radical terrorist regime that chants death to America and is lying to the United States and the world about their secret ambitions to possess a nuclear bomb. President Trump does not want to see that. He wants to take an interest in pursuing who the next leader of the Iranian country is going to be, and that has yet to be seen, and the president is discussing it and deliberating it. Kristen.
You just said on Fox that it doesn't really matter if Russia is giving Iran information about military assets. Why doesn't it matter if U.S. military is put in danger by Russia, and is that what the president believes as well?
What I meant, Kristen, and thank you for giving me a chance to make it very clear, is that it clearly is not making a difference with respect to the military operations in Iran, because we are completely decimating them. As I said earlier, we've taken out nearly 30 of their ships. Their navy has been deemed combat ineffective. 90% reduction in ballistic missile retaliatory strikes against the United States and our Gulf Arab and partners in the region. So, of course, we are achieving the military objectives of this operation, and that is going to continue because the United States military is the best and most lethal fighting force in the world. Sure, go ahead, Benny.
Can you confirm if U.S. has taken full control over the airspace in Iran, like it's been reported these past couple days? Trump said within hours, within days. Can you confirm anything along those lines?
Yes, we are well on our way to doing so.
Caroline, has the president's faith in Russia to cut a peace deal with Ukraine been shaken by the knowledge that Russia is apparently supplying intelligence to Iran in this conflict?
I think the president would say that peace is still an achievable objective with respect to the Russia-Ukraine war. You saw Special Envoy Witkoff put out a tweet yesterday announcing a new prisoner exchange between both Russia and Ukraine. So it's something this administration still wants to see, and something I know the president will continue to work on.
Has he expressed any frustration to Putin about this intelligence?
I'll let the president speak on that directly. Mary.
What does the president mean when he calls for unconditional surrender? Is he saying that the regime has to...
Philadelphia Live on Fox Local, and we're going to take a quick break. We'll come back and let her answer that question when we get back, so stay with us. We'll be right back in 2 minutes.
2 minutes.
What was the question? They just... Philadelphia Live on Fox Local. It's about 8:30. We are streaming on Fox Local as well as all streaming platforms, Fox 29, TikTok, YouTube, Facebook. I'm at Bill A. Fox 29. You could just see it over. It was just up over my shoulder. Give a follow. You can answer the question of the day as it relates to the Girl Scout cookies outside the cannabis dispensary, as well as comment on all the things that are going on. I am also currently in the Fox 29 TikTok chat, so we will answer any of your questions that you have there. But next up, our Jeff Skaversky was looking into, Jeff, just an odd story. It's the best way that I can describe it. People getting sent free things, but they weren't necessarily for them. Like, what's going on?
Bill, this is a hell of a weird story. There's a mac and cheese stand in Center City. It is Mac Mart. It's at 18th and Arch. And so here's the gist of it. So the owner of the Mac Mart, so she gets an email from a random promotions company offering just 150 cases of, you know, that French onion dip from Hell of a Good French onion dip? Well, she gets offered this amount and she doesn't really answer it. Next thing you know, poof, it shows up at her doorstep. Now, this mart, this mac and cheese mart, is a 6 foot by 11 foot stand in Center City. Next thing you know, they have 600 tubs of this, right? So she's wondering what is going on here. She goes to Instagram to tell her story, and she's about to give it away to just random customers. And then she's like, let me actually contact Hell of a Good French Onion Dip, the makers of this. And they tell her, please don't give it away. We don't know if it's contaminated, if there's an issue with it. Long story short, she throws it away. We spoke to her earlier tonight. Here's what Marty Lieberman has to say. So we'll bring that to you for tonight at Fox 29 at 10 o'clock. But she basically said, I didn't know what to do with this initially. She didn't believe the delivery driver when they showed up at her window and said that we have an order of 600 tubs of this French onion dip. But in any event, long story short, it started overseas when I guess Hell of a Good Dip just sent it out as a promotion to a company that does promotions. They perhaps had too much and they pawned it off to randomly this Mac Mart, this mac and cheese company in Center City, Philadelphia. It is a wild, weird, strange story. We will bring it to you tonight after the World Baseball Classic on Fox 29.
Jeff, my apologies for missing the soundbite. We were back here eating tubs of cheese dip and ranch dressing and all the French onion dip and things that got dropped off. We now have them here. So it was strangely enough. So they were just going to give it away, but they weren't sure it was safe. And
yes,
so now that
yeah, so the owner, she actually said her and her husband opened it up and started eating it because they actually like that dip, even though it doesn't really go with their products. They just thought that, okay, they've had this before where promotional companies will reach out and give away some samples. Obviously 600 cases, not quite samples, but Hell of a Good, they just said to her when she reached out to them, don't give it away because we don't know if it's expired or it's contaminated. We don't know really where it came from. After a few days of investigating, she says the company did tell her that they run a lot of promotions. They perhaps sent it to a company in Australia for promotions. They had too much, and somehow, some way, it ended up on the streets of Philadelphia and then into a dumpster. But thankfully, nobody got sick, and other than themselves, nobody else tried it. But it has really nothing to do, per se, with the company, the actual dip company, Hell of a Good French onion dip company. It just really has to do with just a bizarre promotional company in Australia, of all places.
Now the conclusion is we've got to figure out how we get on this list for this company to send all of the extra product that they have extended to us.
That's a lot of dip, man.
Yeah,
that's a lot. That's a lot of French onion dip.
We'll figure it out. Thank you, Jeff. Appreciate it. We will see more from Jeff's story coming up at 10 o'clock. Listen, people who know anything about newsrooms, when food is delivered to a newsroom or it comes in here, we would figure out a way to go ahead and make good use of it. As before we go to break, we were listening to Caroline Leavitt, press secretary. We wanted to give her the opportunity to finish her statement because the question that was coming in at that moment is, what does President Trump mean about by unconditional surrender from Iran? Here's what she had to say.
I'll let the president speak on that directly. Mary.
What does the president mean when he calls for unconditional surrender? Is he saying that the regime has to fully relinquish control?
What the president means is that when he, as commander-in-chief of the U.S. Armed Forces, determines that Iran no longer poses a threat to the United States of America and the goals of Operation Epic Fury has been fully realized, then Iran will essentially be in a place of unconditional surrender. Whether they say it themselves or not, frankly, they don't have a lot of people to say that for them because the United States and the state of Israel have completely wiped out more than 50 leaders of the former terrorist regime, including the supreme leader himself. Monica.
Thank you, Caroline. The president had a July 4th deadline for the One Big Beautiful Bill. Does he see a deadline for the Save America Act, as I know that's a priority of his to get passed?
As soon as possible, I know the president would say. This is a huge priority for the president. It remains one. I know he has added on some priorities to the Save America Act in recent days, namely no transgender transition surgeries for minors. We are not going to tolerate the mutilation of young children in this country, and no men in women's sports. And the president putting all of these priorities together, it speaks to just how common sense they are. These are all common sense priorities of this president that are backed by the vast majority of Americans, and he wants Republicans to act on them as quickly as possible.
Thank you. Ken Paxton laid out some conditions yesterday, saying that he would drop out of the race if Senate leadership on the Republican side agreed to, getting rid of the filibuster, for example. What are the president's thoughts on that?
I won't get ahead of the president on the Texas Senate race. I know it's of great interest to everyone. I'm no longer his political spokesperson. I'm a government spokesperson, so I'll let him speak on that directly.
Caroline, you elaborated on the president's decision to tap Markwayne Mullin as the next DHS secretary. Can you talk a little bit about the rationale for the choice, why Mullin was the best candidate in his eyes, and also your message to congressional Democrats who continue to keep the DHS unfunded?
Yeah, well, Senator Markwayne Mullin has been a strong friend of the president and a big supporter of the president's immigration policies. Not only that, he's exceptionally talented, qualified, and I know well respected by his peers on Capitol Hill from both sides of the aisle. So we look forward to his expeditious confirmation, and I know the White House will be working with our counterparts in the Senate to make that happen as quickly as possible.
Caroline. Thank you, Caroline. The president has said he wants to be involved in Iran's future. He has also called the son of Supreme Leader Khamenei a lightweight, and he has also said that United States strikes have taken out the potential candidates. So does the United States now have any candidates, or like looking at candidates who may replace, who may lead Iran for the future?
I know there's a number of people that our intelligence agencies and the United States government are looking at, but I won't get any further on that. Sure.
And that was White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt answering questions from the media outside of the White House a little bit earlier today. Going to take a quick break and then we'll come back. The World Baseball Classic is going on. We'll get an update on that. The Flyers made some moves earlier, so we will check in on sports. And we've got a couple more of our local reporters, as well as updates from Reverend Jesse Jackson's funeral earlier today. So stay put. Philadelphia Live on Fox Local and all streaming platforms. Philadelphia Live on Fox Local and all streaming platforms. Again, a reminder that we are also streaming live and the chat is open on Fox 29 TikTok, Fox 29 YouTube, Fox 29 Facebook, and of course, Fox Local. We are always here. I'm actually in the TikTok chat right now. I believe Jake is looking at YouTube. So we've got you covered. If you've got questions, comments, we are there for you. Next up, looking into sports, our Breland Moore. The game has started, Breland. I think the United States is up, but we're not dominating yet.
No, I mean, it's pretty early, though. It is currently top of the second. So, like, it's literally been 1.5 innings, basically. They have one out, and the United States is up 2-1, and they got on board pretty early on. Aaron Judge, really doing some damage. However, Brazil did score, so we'll see. It's early, but right now they currently have a 17-year-old high school student on the mound for them. So, and the person he's pitching to is Bryce Harper. So I imagine this is going to go a little lopsided in just a little bit here. But so far, they're hanging in there.
Now, it was interesting. You mentioned the 17-year-old and that they were on the roster. I didn't realize the 17-year-old was going to be like next man up, getting in the game in the second inning. The
17-year-old right now, he's the youngest player in WBC. He is on the mound right now, Joseph Contreras. And he is a currently enrolled high school student currently pitching to Bryce Harper. So I'm sure Bryce really loves that.
I was just about to say, I feel like that's a whole bunch of pressure. And both Breland and you're watching us kind of look off camera as we're both trying to see what's going on. I'd imagine that's the same level of pressure. Like, how when teams go through all their pitchers and like the right fielder has to come in and pitch, and you don't want to be the person who gets struck out or pop out to somebody like that. This is a 17-year-old.
I mean, I don't even think it's that, because this is a minor. This is a child. Like, it's way worse than that. This is a high school senior, a child.
Wow, you went child.
Pitching to a former NL MVP. Like,
okay. All right.
Yeah.
So you don't.
I can't even imagine. There's no equivalent. There's no equivalent. I mean, I hope he does well-ish, I guess. I mean, that'd be quite the story to tell when you go back to school. But it's a child.
So can you imagine what's going to go on back in the dugout of the world team for anybody who either gets struck out or gets embarrassed by the person we keep referring to as a child?
Yeah, the kid can't even vote, and he's striking you out. Like, what are you doing?
Wow.
Can't even buy alcohol in this country.
Can't vote, can't drink.
Yeah.
Well, but now, in fairness, when can you get drafted in baseball?
I mean, that's a different story, but you're not seeing a 17-year-old child in Major League Baseball. You're just not. So it's not. The only equivalent we could come up with on the Fantastic Sports Show was like potentially LeBron. A hockey player can be drafted, but they still have to be 18 within the calendar year if they want to start in the NHL. An MLS player, Kevin Sullivan was 14 when he started. Now that is really a child. He started for the Union when he was 14. He broke the record for the youngest ever. So but beyond that, I can't really think of anytime you put a minor in a position like that where you're pitching to, like I said, a former MVP of the league.
Okay, now Bryce Harper got on base, and then 60 home run Aaron Judge hit into a double play against that child. So the child's hanging in there.
I guess.
He got bragging rights when he goes back to school. Second period is going to be jumping in Brazil.
Hey, you know what? Good for him. He actually goes to school in Georgia, but there's a lot of weird, not weird, but interesting ways people can play for their team. Jazz Chisholm, for example, playing for Great Britain. So there's a lot of different ways, but he is enrolled in an American school in Georgia.
Yeah. I gotta look this kid up because I'm loving now the fact that he's going back to school. Can you imagine how popular this kid's gonna be going back to school? No matter what happens.
Yeah, I mean, he's playing. Jeez, he's able to meet some of these guys. My goodness, I can't imagine.
And then quickly, tell us again. So the Flyers did a little tweaking, but nothing significant.
Yeah, nothing significant. I mean, I don't know if anybody who's watching this was expecting them to do something drastic to make a run for it. Well, you're disappointed. Bobby Brink went for a little defensive power. Nick Delorier went to Carolina for a 7th-round selection in 2027. And the rest of it was just minor league swappings of early 20-something-year-olds that you've not heard of. But they were moves for the future. But it's not going to really impact this roster this year.
Good. Breland Moore, thank you very much. Appreciate it. We will be looking for more from sports coming up a little bit later on Fox 29 and here streaming in the next hour. All right, guys, we're going to continue on sitting here at the World Baseball Classic. Shout out to that high school student. He stepped up and did some things as he's out there facing arguably the best in the world. Good for him. All right, so earlier today we were talking about the fact that there was a remembrance, a celebration of life for Reverend Jesse Jackson. Several individuals spoke there, several people expressed their condolences, but also the impact that Reverend Jackson had on their life. One of those people was former Vice President Kamala Harris. Here's what she had to say.
Mrs. Jackie, and to the entire Jackson family, on behalf of Doug and my family, we pray with you as we did a couple weeks ago in your home, and we thank you. I thank you. So let me just say, I predicted a lot about what's happening right now. I'm not into saying I told you so, but we did see it coming. But what I did not predict is that we would not have Jesse Jackson with us right now to help us get through this. And this afternoon has been such a beautiful remembrance of his spirit, his life, and his faith. And in a way that Reverend Al talked about it and so many others have, I do think of this afternoon as what it is doing for me to renew my faith in what is possible, fueled by the hope that Jesse Jackson so often reminded us of. I'm reminded of a passage in the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 7, verse 7. Ask, and it will be given to you. Seek, and you will find. Knock, and the door will be opened to you. And so from a young age, we know that Reverend Jackson saw that the doors had been closed to the millions of people across our nation and throughout the world who were otherwise so deserving. And they were doors, of course, to opportunity, to equity, to justice, to freedom. And so he dedicated his life, as we all know, to breaking down those barriers. So when we are speaking of these doors, I will share with you that as a child, I was raised that when you see a closed door, you must knock and wait to be invited in. What life has taught me is that if that invitation is not offered, and if that door remains shut, even after repeated attempts to knock on said door, sometimes you have no choice but just to kick that door open. Reverend Jackson was impatient. He did not waste time waiting. Even when the doors in front of him were barred and bolted, even if those on the other side hesitated or even ignored him, he always devised a way through. Jesse Jackson was a strategist. He was one of the most effective community and political organizers of our time. And he was the founder, I think most would agree, the founder of the modern progressive coalition. Think about the work that he did. In addition to the strength of his spirit and his determination, the leadership of Jesse Jackson to tap into what otherwise had been untapped in terms of the potential of a coalition of seemingly different people who could be brought together around shared values and ideals and experience. That's what Jesse Jackson did. He modeled that for so many of us. Over the past half century, that coalition strategy, his methodology, has been the heartbeat for so many movements about progress in our country. Those movements born out of struggle, but resulting in progress. Think about, and it was mentioned, the women leaders that he elevated, like the self-described colored girls, who have been a driving force behind so many campaigns that have been about freedom and justice. Throughout his life, Reverend Jackson reminded us that the many fights for freedom are interconnected. He saw not only the interconnection, but the interdependence of the various struggles for justice and dignity on behalf of Black Americans, Native and Asian Americans, Latino, LGBTQ Americans, and Americans with disabilities. That was Jesse's rainbow, and he continued to grow it. He gave us the language, the rainbow, to understand, as has been said, the beauty that comes after the storm, when we see what is possible and what can be unburdened by what has been. As he once said, when a barrier falls for one of the locked out, it opens the doors for all. And that is what he told me, and what he taught me, and how he inspired me. I was a student at Howard University, you know, when Jesse Jackson was one of the leaders of the anti-apartheid movement, and me and my classmates would go out on the mall every weekend and protest, looking at Jesse Jackson as a model of what that movement should and could have been. I was a law student then in 1988 when Jesse Jackson decided to run again. I was the first Black woman elected district attorney of San Francisco. I was the first Black woman elected district attorney in the state of California in 2004, when I created one of the first in the nation initiatives as a prosecutor that was about getting jobs and counseling to those who had been in the criminal justice system. And at the time, the powers that be told me I was not supposed to be doing that. They said, "Why are you letting people out of jail when you're supposed to put them back in?" Jesse Jackson spent a lot of time in the Bay Area. Many of you may know. I saw Butch Wing here. And Butch, together with Jesse Jackson, would visit with me during those earliest days of my elected career to give me the support and the confidence and the initiative to think about how, in a position such as being DA, I could continue the idea about what it means to build coalition around a group of people whose dignity must be seen and the resources that must be put into them. Jesse Jackson, from my first elected position to when I ran with Joe Biden for Vice President of the United States, and when I became the Democratic nominee for President of the United States, always told me and convinced me that everything that we were doing is possible. And so I just want to share what I brought today. I brought with me two momentums from Jesse Jackson's campaign that I have saved since I was a student. So one is this button that reads Jesse Jackson 88. The other, some of you who were around at the time may remember, is this button. I will read it to you, and pastors, please forgive me. It reads as follows, all caps. Damn straight, exclamation point. It's time for a Black presidential candidate. That was a Jesse Jackson pin from those days. And just a beautiful example of his determination, his sense of humor, but his ability to see what can be unburdened by what has been. And I thank you, Jesse Jackson, for your service to our nation and the world. Well done, good and faithful servant. Well done. Thank you.
Comments from former Vice President Kamala Harris at the homegoing service of Reverend Jesse Jackson today. It was a celebration of his life with so many people there, 3 former presidents, vice presidents, dignitaries of all sorts, and we've been playing some of the clips for you throughout the evening. Going to take a break and then we'll be right back. What's trending? What's going on? What are people searching? Cam Scrivens up next with the trending topics and the web searches on Philadelphia Live here on Fox Local and all streaming platforms. We'll be back. It is 9:01 on Philadelphia Live on Fox Local. A reminder that we are not just on Fox Local, although you should download the Fox Local app so you can take us with you streaming live pretty much 24 hours a day. But we also are up on the Fox 29 TikTok page, YouTube, Facebook. I am in the TikTok chat room, and you can follow me at Bill A. Fox 29 on TikTok, reading some of your comments, interacting a little bit with the folks who are there. Jake, who is here to my left, has been in the YouTube chat, going back and forth with people. So we are here for you, interacting if you have questions or comments, and I have read some of them. They're pretty colorful. So good evening to everybody who's participating in the chat. And speaking of social media, the chat, streaming, all of those things, Cam Scrivens is here to let us know what everybody is searching and talking about. Hey, Cam.
Hey guys, so basically we have 2 trending stories on our website happening right now. Earlier today, Chris O'Connell was out covering a story about an 11-year-old boy who fatally shot his mom's boyfriend during this domestic dispute. Basically this happened on Peachtree Street, and they're still uncovering whether or not the 11-year-old boy or the mom will face charges in this case, but it is something that people are looking at, and we have a video on social media, on Instagram, on Facebook, on TikTok, that kind of shows Chris O'Connell's package, but just something that's unfolding that we'll have more details as the days go on. Another story that I want to mention that people are looking at on our website, fox29.com, is a Washington Township, New Jersey man is facing maximum of 10 years in prison. He turned himself in today, an 82-year-old man, for being accused of being in possession of more than 41,000 images of child sexual abuse material. And it's a very heinous type of case and crime that he has committed, and he did turn himself in. So he will be back in court next month in April, and we will see how the sentencing and whatnot goes as the weeks come.
That is two really troubling stories, but the first one is just something that people are talking about. I see why it's trending, because they're talking about it on social media and what have you. This 11-year-old, and now they're kind of trying to determine whether or not there will be any charges that come out of this. Probably not for the child, possibly for the mother, but just an unthinkable situation to allegedly be seeing your mother being abused. And try to figure out what you're going to do.
Yes, at such a young age, that's a lot of trauma. So we will see how this unfolds.
Now, those stories go up on the Facebook page as well and all of the platforms. So people who want to comment, they have the opportunity to do that on our social media.
Absolutely. You will see them on Facebook, Instagram. Sometimes we will post our packages on TikTok. You guys are streaming live on TikTok right now, so you have the ability to comment live. But we also have it on fox29.com. You're on the Fox Local app. We are everywhere, and we go there.
All right. Thank you very much, Cam. Appreciate it. All right. Sounds good. It is 9:04 here on Philadelphia Live on Fox Local. And next up, we're going to check in and see what's going on. I feel like Drew has had, even as he doesn't necessarily embrace it, this has been good news. These are positive weather updates. You know, a break in good weather down to 50, I'll take it.
Oh man, you know it's been a cold winter when you're bragging about seeing some 50s in the forecast for tomorrow. Hey, so I was talking about last hour how I was going to step out. It's going to be chilly when I got my pizza. I just went out, got my pizza. Here's what's for dinner. You know, you do what's for dinner on your 4 o'clock show. So I got my nice little pizza right there, ready to go. I'm going to dig into that in just 2 seconds. But first, I do want to take a turn out into the plains and into the Midwest, where we have some severe weather that is happening this hour. Been multiple tornado warnings happening throughout Tennessee. What did I say, Tennessee? It's in the Tulsa area. We're talking about Oklahoma. And you can take a look at that right there. I'm going to actually turn off the radar for just a second, kind of show you where we have the tornado warning right here. So here's the radar, and then you kind of see that there. And this is one of many spots experiencing severe weather at this hour. As we take a look kind of across the region right there, and it extends from Oklahoma into parts of Missouri and Kansas, look, even into Nebraska and Iowa, all seeing some of this severe weather. And on the backside of this, they're getting snow in places like South Dakota, into other parts of Nebraska, into Colorado. This is a strong cold front. And when you have a really strong cold front, it makes some really strong storms. And the reason you tell it's a strong cold front is just look at the difference between snow and rain. There's about a 30-degree temperature difference like that between the cold front, and that's what's sparking all the storms across the plains this evening. So I just want to put that out there since that's something that's happening right now. And if you want more on that, you can watch Fox Weather. That's our 24-hour weather channel. It's on Fox Local Philadelphia. It's on fox29.com. There's a live stream of that. They've been covering it all night. Back here at home, I'm covering our glass half full forecast. You know, my water bottle's more than half empty right here, but for Bill Anderson, we're filling it all the way to the top with this temperature rise right here. So I'm like, you know, it's gonna be a little chilly in those mid-50s tomorrow with those clouds, but you're like, you know, bring it on after that cold winter, right? You can cheers to that.
I'm all for it. Listen, you toughened me up. I got through 2, 3, 4 degrees. I had to chip ice off of the hose attachment on the side of my house.
Oof.
I can tough it through 50.
Yeah, there's no question about it. And here's the best part is on the other side, things are looking great. By Monday, it's 70 degrees. And we got sunny skies. Then we're soaring to the mid to upper 70s Tuesday and Wednesday before it gets cold again.
All right, Drew, I appreciate it. See, glass half full. We're rolling with it.
Cheers.
There you go, most of the way full. And Drew will continue to keep you updated. As he pointed out, you can always get those up to the second updates on fox29.com. Of course, there is Fox Weather that is available online and streaming platforms as well. Always got you covered. And Drew does streaming shows just like this in the morning after Good Day Philadelphia weekend, so make sure you stay with us all the time. I'm going to take a break, and then we will continue on with the discussion, the updates, streaming live here on all streaming platforms. It's Philadelphia Live on Fox Local. We'll be right back. 10 minutes after 9 here on Philadelphia Live on Fox Local. I'm Bill Anderson here with you until 10 o'clock. But on our streaming platforms, we are pretty much live 24 hours a day. So if there's something going on, if you need information, you want information, we are here for you on any of the platforms. Make sure you follow us. You can see my social media counter right here over my shoulder. You can follow me at Bill A. Fox 29. That's my YouTube page, my TikTok, my Instagram, Facebook, you name it. Would love to hear from you. And of course, and people are doing it in real time right now as I'm in the TikTok chat room. You see me looking down. It's because I have TikTok open right here in front of me on the Fox 29 page and reading people's comments, trying to respond to as many of them as possible as people are there in the room. So Drew was just talking about some pretty severe weather that is sweeping across the country. Said that you can watch Fox Weather if you wanted to get an update, but we're going to dip into it for just a minute to get you caught up on what's going on. Let's see this weather that Drew was talking about.
About to roll through Joplin, Missouri right now. And yes, you can see some very strong wind there. But even though there's a little bit of rotation along that line, we're not seeing anything that's really popping out as like a spot that's worthy of putting out a tornado warning. Still, there's some spin in the air here. So even though it's a line of storms, that does not mean that we don't have the possibility of tornadoes. This is going to be a kicking line of storms here over the next few hours, and we're going to be here with you through it. I think the next few hours are going to be pretty critical when it comes to this severe weather outbreak. Again, there are a lot of places that are getting severe weather right now. It's not just this cluster coming out of Oklahoma. We'll talk more about Iowa, Missouri, Nebraska, and Kansas coming up in just a little bit.
Okay, Fox Weather with their 9 p.m. news. I wanted to make sure that we got the top of that on air. Of course, if you want to watch Fox Weather, you can watch them for free anytime at foxweather.tv. Also, if you want to download their app, there's the QR code, nice and big for you. Fox Weather tracks these storms out in real time anytime we see tornadic activity.
And so, as you can see, they were moving out of that. We're just trying to get you caught up on everything that is going on with that weather that Drew was just focusing on. Momentarily, we're going to get an update on sports. We also have some more clips from some of the things that have been taking place throughout the day, more from the press conference that President Trump hosted earlier today. It's more of a roundtable discussion, actually. The premise was that college sports need to be fixed. The NIL money is creating a problem. Name, image, likeness, for those of you who are unfamiliar with NIL. It is the money, the endorsement money largely, that these college athletes are now able to make. And there are several people who believe that it's causing a problem with college sports because you now have these young people who do not have that same level of motivation, these college athletes, and in some circumstances, not even influencers, but they do not have the same motivation to excel and achieve in college sports or any of these other areas, because they are making millions of dollars while in college, some of them. The roundtable went on. We're going to listen to some of it. I believe we're going now to Randy Levine, who is the president of the Yankees. Let's hear what he had to say.
Thank you, Mr. President, for putting this group together. Leading up to this, wherever I would go, because I had an interest in this, both professionally, what the Yankees have done, and my experience on board of directors of various colleges, everybody would say over and over again, this thing is failing bad, and it's like a hamster on a wheel. It kept spinning on the wheel, but never getting off. It was never done. And they told me, please talk to the president, because he's the only person who will convene a group like this in order to reach a consensus to get it done. And he agreed to do it. But he said to me, if I'm going to do it, it has to be bipartisan. And he asked me and the speaker and everybody else to make sure it is bipartisan. And it is. We have people from both parties here, and that's what has to happen. So we put this group together. Why did we put this group together? Because it's representative of the people who know the best on how to solve this issue. We have college presidents who've been living with this from all over the country. We have some of the finest athletic directors who have been pioneers in this area. We have professional sports executives. Why do we have them in the room? The answer is, as Commissioner Silva would tell you, or Hall of Famer Lou Lamoriello, these issues have been in professional sports for a long time. We have a lot of experience. I negotiated the first revenue sharing agreement in baseball. Caps, revenue sharing, distribution, all of those things are what we live with every single day. So maybe we can share our experience and transport it here, as long as it's in the context of college sports. There's one group that is missing, but they won't be missing from the final product, and that's the student athletes themselves. This group, as we move on, you can be assured we'll be talking to the student athletes and all their representatives to make sure their voices is clearly heard. You know, time is of the essence. People have told me they've been to Congress 15, 16, 17 times. One group goes in, the other group goes in, and nothing seems to get done. Time is of the essence. Besides the numbers the president talked about, I heard a story from one of the great professional athletes on the Yankees, one of our great players yesterday. And he went to a great university, and he said to me, thank you for doing this, because every day I got asked for more money for NILs, every single day. And what happened is I gave money for an NIL for a quarterback who left the next year. Meanwhile, a friend of mine, daughter is on the rowing team, and she lost her scholarship, and she's an Olympic hopeful, and now she has to pay her own way. That's just not right. It's really not right, and it has to be fixed. So, Mr. President, thank you for bringing this group together. I think they're really, just for discussion, we'll hear from everybody. I think there are really two things to add on to what the speaker said that have to be done. One, there has to be an antitrust exemption, because everyone in the room has to be able to talk to each other, all the conferences, the schools, the presidents, everybody, without getting sued. That includes the kids. They have to be involved in these negotiations, the student athletes, and there has to be an entity that's set up by the people who are going to administer this, run this, that are empowered by the legislation to handle all the issues the president spoke about. And we're all here to support that, to help that, and to make sure that it's just not business as usual. Just an idea I have is maybe that an antitrust exemption lasts for 2 years to make sure that these rules and everything are really being enforced. And if they're not, we go back to square one. It'll give the Congress oversight, give the president oversight, but it's time to move. And Mr. President, I couldn't agree with you more. Thanks to your leadership, we got to move this really, really fast. We have ESPN and Fox here. They're probably the biggest payers in this entire thing, and the fact that they're here and their voice is heard is great. So, Mr. President, only you could pull this off, and we're grateful. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Randy.
And that was Randy Levine from the Yankees. And what was interesting as Breland gets ready to step up to the camera and the microphone again, what's interesting is that they were addressing in those statements pretty much what Breland said before. And it was peculiar, I guess, is an interesting way to put it, that they said that they had an interest in having everyone at the table for this college roundtable, for this discussion about college sports, for this discussion about how you're going to address it. They said that it was important to have everyone at the table, but as Breland pointed out earlier, they said that having everyone at the table will include the college athletes, will include the student athletes, will include the young people because, in quotes, they want to make sure their voices are heard, but that will happen at a later date. It was interesting that you were able to get college coaches and athletic directors and elected officials and executives from professional leagues and management, representatives, owners, all of that, and then said, but we want the athletes who are going to be affected involved. We will bring them to the table at a later date. That was an interesting comment. Breland has stepped up to the camera, and so let's get Breland's take on all of this. So Breland, we were listening to Randy Levine from the Yankees and his comment, and it was interesting because it was like foreshadowing everything that you said. He talked about the importance of having young people at the table, but none of them were at the table.
Right.
Yeah, so it was interesting. They said they will bring them in at a later date. Do you agree it's challenging to try to solve something when you're not bringing in the most affected people until after you've already had your discussions about where this should go?
Yeah, I mean, I think the college sports landscape has always been a little interesting to me, and I say that in like a very negative context. When I was in school, obviously Shabazz Napier in 2014, when UConn won the tournament, he got up there and he is like, we don't have enough to eat half the time because they limit our meal plans, things like that. And that was not even in the conversation of getting paid to play. Now, they're not getting paid necessarily to play outright, but any college student in the country has the ability to make money off of their name, image, and likeness. If you're a musician and you go on TikTok and you start posting and you get monetary funds from your videos, you're making money off of NIL. And so college athletes, I understand their rationale to want to be paid off of their name, image, and likeness and make money, especially because a lot of these guys do not go on to play pro. There's so many talented athletes at mid-majors that could very well be making money right now. So I do understand that there is a need for it, but it has gotten a little out of control. And I think the landscape of college sports, when it comes to colleges having NIL funds and whatnot, have they always done that? Have they just done it in a backwards way? Yeah, absolutely. We all know that. It's an open secret. But I think in order to make sure that we have a competitive landscape, yes, there needs to be some guardrails, but it just was very interesting to me that you have a conversation about these people and not one of these people are in the room or at the table. It just seems like another group of executives making the decisions, and the actual people who are affected and should have a voice were once again shut out. But that Often that's very often the case, unfortunately, in college athletics.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree with that, and I think it is very interesting that people still are unwilling to acknowledge that these young people have an understanding of NIL, of social media, of all of that, that a lot of those people who have been tremendously successful in other areas, brilliant business people, but don't necessarily understand that the way that some of these young athletes probably do.
Yeah.
Yeah, continuing to follow the game, what's going on with it?
Well, I'm talking to you, so I can't really see it right now, but it's 3-1 still, and we just went to commercial, so couldn't tell you what inning because I'm talking to you. But so far, the United States is still up, and of course, we will check back in with that coming up at whenever our broadcast airs. I'm sure it's not going to be right at 10, but the 10 o'clock news whenever that occurs. So, so far, so good.
Top of the fourth right now, United States 3-1.
There we go.
Yeah, it is interesting though. I mean, they are. Obviously they are dominating in terms of the ability to pitch and play defense over Brazil, but it's not like we're blowing it up at the bats ourselves. Only have 5 hits through 4.
Right. And that Bichette that you saw there on that screen, that is Bo Bichette's brother. So playing for Brazil. So that's a little fun connection there.
Fun fact. All right, so we'll be waiting to see what happens with this, and then you guys will break it all down for us in sports in just a little bit.
You bet.
Sounds good. Thank you very much, Breland.
Yep. Bye.
All right, you have a good one. That's Breland Moore, our sports anchor. And as we were going to Breland, we were listening in on some of the discussion that was happening at this sports roundtable that took place a little bit earlier, organized by President Trump as well as some of the executives from across sports. Ron DeSantis was there. Governor DeSantis, let's hear what he had to say.
Thank you, Mr. President, for doing this. I mean, you have pedaled to the metal on so many different issues, from national security to border to energy, and you're not taking the pedal off any of that. And you could be forgiven to say college sports is important, but your plate's full, and you just added it to all the other things that you're doing. And I thank you for that, because this would not get done without your leadership. No one else could get this group together. No one else could work with Congress to be able to do it. And so I appreciate it, because it is important to a lot of people. I mean, we know this is out of whack. We went from a system where you couldn't give a student athlete anything. They could sell your jersey, you get nothing, to now, quarterback throws for 300 yards and they go see the coach. Hey, I need more money. Give me more money from the club. Okay, I'll transfer. Or they get money and I don't want to play in that bowl game. Sorry, I'm just going to sit out. And I think that that's been bad, certainly for college football and college sports. But let's just be clear, and a lot of the speakers have said, and I speak from being in the South, college football is king. It's not even close. University of Florida is the reigning NCAA basketball national champion. The football team, I think they won 4 games. So guess what? Are the fans happy being the NCAA? Not really. They're mad because football didn't do good. And football has been able to generate so much money over the years that it's subsidized a lot of the other programs, a lot of these non-revenue sports. People have had more and more opportunities. Well, now, with the collectives and how much it's costing football, the costs are going up dramatically, and it is threatening these other sports. And, look, yes, being able to produce Olympians, being able to do that, I think it's really important. But 99% of Division I athletes are not going to make a living at it, and they're not going to play in the Olympics. And I speak as somebody, I was the baseball captain at Yale. Like, if we had NIL there, I probably wasn't going to get a lucrative NIL deal. That's fine. I get it. But what being a college athlete teaches you, there's a reason why the Naval Academy and in West Point, you have to be an athlete when you go through there, because it teaches you discipline. It teaches you about hard work. It teaches you about competitiveness. It teaches you how to cope with failure. And so a lot of the people, the students in these sports that may not be as glitzy, but are going to be harmed by the current trajectory, these are going to be future leaders of our country in a variety of different endeavors. And so I'm thankful that this is going to get done under President Trump's leadership. This is a bipartisan issue. We are so division on all this different stuff. There is no partisanship about this. We all want our universities and the athletics to succeed. A lot of the speakers have talked about the issues of eligibility. I mean, how do you have there till you're like 25, 18 to 25, and you're still playing? How do you play in the NBA G League and then come back and play in college? How do you get to transfer all these different things? We know those need to be addressed. And obviously, the compensation with NIL, I signed one of the first NIL bills. But that was like, if they're making money off you, you get. Now they're doing like perpetual negotiations, even more than pro athletes can do. So I'm confident this is the group to do it. This is the president to do it. And there's going to be a lot of people in our country that are going to be happy when this problem is fixed. Thank you, sir.
It is such an interesting discussion when you have people coming together and they're at the table talking about NIL and what have you without the young people at the table. And when you listen to that, it really does sound like so many other things. It's just a discussion about control. Like, they know there's huge amounts of money that are involved. You know, there's always going to be huge amounts of money that are involved. They're just not used to the young people having that much say over where the money goes. And that's part of the reason why this is such a challenge. And yes, NIL in a lot of ways is out of control, and there need to be some guardrails there. But it's interesting that this is a struggle to control the young people who have too much strength and power right now because they're becoming millionaires off of their social media in high school and college. Speaking of social media, we've had our questions of the day up. Jake is here. Our Go Vote has been going throughout the whole show, but we have been doing so many thousand things throughout the evening that we haven't checked in on it, but people are voting.
Yeah, the numbers are changing. Like, there was a really close race for first place, but something just slid into the top spot. So my question for today is, what are you looking forward to this weekend?
Okay.
So right now, the top answer is sleep.
I was about to say that without seeing the questions.
Yeah, I'm excited
Seeing
to
the
catch
options.
up on sleep.
Yeah.
So that's at 35%. And for a while, it was tied with better weather and spring forward. So right now, those are currently at 25%. But the three of them were kind of all going up and down, which makes sense. You know, like the weather, people are excited kind of to get outside, even if they have to wear a hoodie. You know, it's not going to be summer temperatures yet, but it's going to be a lot nicer. You know, like you were saying, anything is better than the 4 degrees.
Right. We went through a gut punch.
Yeah.
Now 50 seems pretty good.
Yeah. I mean, anything is going to be a big improvement. So after that, we have catching up on TV at 10%. So, you know, I guess not too many people are behind on their shows. And in last place, at only 5%, is going out. So I guess a lot of people don't have any parties to go to or any events to go to. I feel like this is going to be a chill weekend.
A lot of people are my age. So they're sitting there like, go out? You mean it's 10 o'clock? What you mean? PM? Like, no.
Yeah, so
sleep.
But yeah, people are really active on social media with this one. Facebook, we're getting a lot of comments coming in. Someone saying making a stew. So that's fun.
Okay.
That's different. A lot of people are saying daylight savings. I know a lot of people are going to be excited to have a little bit more daylight, you know, so that's something to look forward to. Someone just said nothing, not having to work. So honestly, I get it. Simple.
I don't. I love my job. I would work all the time if I could. They're watching.
Yeah.
Okay.
I love this job.
Be careful. Yeah,
I'm gonna really miss it over the weekend.
They're watching. Did that sound sincere?
Yeah, 100%.
Okay,
100%.
good. All right.
So, yeah, what are you looking forward to this weekend?
I just voted sleep.
Sleep? Okay, yeah.
So I don't think it's surprising that a bunch of people, like everybody in this room, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of us. I think everybody who is still at work at 10 o'clock is probably looking forward to sleep.
Yeah, I mean, especially us, like we started a new schedule this week, you know,
Yes.
our bodies need to adjust. I'm gonna spend a lot of time this weekend, you know, trying to fix that, get my body on a new schedule, so.
Yeah, so I go through all these choices. My vote is sleep. Probably won't do a lot of catching up on TV. Don't care that much about spring forward. We already had this discussion. I think the whole concept is stupid and outdated. Definitely sleep. I'm not going anywhere. It's like going out means go pick up my niece and take her to the playground, then maybe going out. And I mean, better weather's always good.
Yeah, I mean,
but the weather's the same in my bedroom. So.
Yeah, so, but you know, it will just going outside to take a little walk, you know, it is good for your mental health, you know, just getting outside a little bit. So I'm excited to actually be able to do that and not have to trudge through all the snow, you know, it'll be a lot easier, so.
All right, I like it. Appreciate it. Now, folks, just go to fox29.com/go vote. Let us know. We're looking at the number. Sleep just took another little jump. That was me and Chris both here in the studio. voting for sleep, a little spring forward, not a lot of going out. A lot of people in that our generation are like, yo, I'm going to bed. So fox29.com/go vote. Let us know what you think. There you go. Look,
Yeah.
the numbers are jumping for sleep. People are like, yeah, I'm just going to rest. All right, quick break and we'll be back. Thank you, Jake. And you can also comment on all of the Fox 29 social media platforms. If you want to go deeper and explain what you're going to do, you can do that as well on all streaming platforms. We'll be right back. Philadelphia Live on Fox Local. I started to see if we could grab Breland of the sports department. They, of course, are getting ready for sports on the news. There is a report. So any of you NFL fans and any Eagles fans who have been watching what's going on with potential Eagles trades, there was a trade. It does not involve the Eagles, but it may set the market for what the Eagles can expect if they decide to trade any of their players. So the Las Vegas Raiders are reportedly trading 5-time Pro Bowl defensive end Max Crosby. Now, he's a name that was mentioned as a potential Eagles trade target as well. They are trading him to the Baltimore Ravens, according to reports. The cost is apparently first-round draft picks in 2026 and 2027. So that's the report that is coming out. That was tweeted out by Adam Schefter, and now other sources are looking into it as well. I mentioned that both because we are streaming nationally and there may be football fans, but also because Max Crosby was someone who was viewed as a potential trade target for the Eagles, trying to figure out what it would have cost to trade for him. Now we know it's 2 first-round picks. Also, because he is a little bit older player. Now, he plays a different position than A.J. Brown, but there has been discussion about if the Eagles want to trade A.J. Brown, what it would take for teams to trade for him. Apparently, the Eagles have a high asking price of at least a first-round pick. All the things that you've been seeing happening in the NFL indicate that that first-round pick may not be that unreasonable, as you are seeing teams begin to throw them around. Now, this is just reported right now. They have not entered official free agency, or the official time where they can finalize these trades. That's next week. But this is reported obviously by reliable sources. So we have been listening to some of the comments made as it relates to NIL, what's going on with that, this college roundtable that took place earlier today about how do you solve the problem of money and name, image and likeness destroying, in quotes, college sports. Next up, let's hear from Charlie Baker, who is the president of the NCAA.
You know, today there are more kids playing college sports than at any time in our nation's history. There's 556,000 student athletes across all three divisions playing on behalf of 1,100 schools. And those 1,100 schools are second only to the United States of America in terms of the amount of financial assistance they make available to those student athletes. It's over $4 billion. That's also the biggest number we've ever invested as a community in the student athletes who attend our schools. There is a lot that is right with college sports, and anybody who watched the Women's Olympic Championship game between Canada and the United States would know that, among other things, all of the players on both of those teams were former college student athletes, all 46 of them from both teams that played in that championship final. Women's sports has grown dramatically. The visibility of women's sports, the viewership of women's sports, the attendance at women's sports, the investments in women's sports have all gone dramatically up over the course of the past 10 years or so. And if you talk to almost anybody who follows youth sports, they'll tell you that the growth in youth sports on the women's side continues to be profound. But that said, everything everybody has said about the challenges we face at this particular point in time is true. And I want to give a special thanks to Speaker Johnson and to Leader Scalise for the work that they've done, you know, to use a sports analogy, carrying the ball on behalf of the SCORE Act in the House chamber over the course of this year. It deals with the rules issue, it deals with the agents issue, it deals with some of the financial issues, it deals with the equity question, it deals with a wide variety of the issues that are challenging for so many in the college sports space these days. And the final thing I'll just say, we have, I talk to a lot of people who are connected in one way or another to college sports, both in this country and around the world, because they have children who attend college here in the U.S. And over and over and over again, the thing I constantly hear is there's nothing like college sports anywhere else in the world. And you are so lucky to live in a country where you have a system that works for young people the way this one works for young people here. So I'm deeply grateful for your commitment to this issue. I'm thrilled by the folks you've managed to put around this table. I agree with others who said there's probably nobody else who could do that. And college sports was a great thing for me and my kids and my wife and so many. I know a lot of kids who wouldn't have graduated from high school, much less gone to and graduated from college if it wasn't for college sports. It's a truly unique American jewel, and we should do all we possibly can to ensure its success for the next generation and the generations after that. So thank you again for having us all here today.
Comments from the president of the NAACP continuing to explore this whole discussion about what to do about name, image, and likeness challenges. This was convened by the president and several executives from throughout sports. We also have been listening in throughout the day as there was earlier a celebration of life for Reverend Jesse Jackson. 3 former presidents, vice presidents, several dignitaries all came up and kind of recounted their experiences personal with Reverend Jackson, but also the impact that he made on politics, on life, on the civil rights movement, and on them. And one of the people who had several stories to share, powerful recollection, was former President Bill Clinton. Let's listen to him.
I think we should not forget, and Jim Zogby didn't, he did a fine job, but this is a celebration and a memorial service. And you have to ask yourself, what did Jesse Jackson do that I admire most, that moved me most, and what can I do right now that would maybe be as good as what he did then? That's what we're all facing here. I love Jackie and her family. Santita sang at my second inauguration. The boys have got to go to Congress, and Yusuf, I thought, when the first time I met Yusuf, I thought, I could do whatever I wanted if he worked for me. He'd just take care of things. And you're good at it. It's been an honor to know all of you. But I want to say something, highly personal tonight. I came to truly love Jesse Jackson. And we had more in common than he thought. We were both two guys who were born to single mothers living in the South. And so I got to watch this guy, and frankly, the first time we met was at the 20th anniversary of the celebration of the integration of Little Rock Central High School. And some young people may not even know why that's important. But in the 1920s, that school was voted the most beautiful high school in America. During the whole time I was governor of Arkansas, that one school accounted for 25% of our merit scholars. You could go there and study Latin and Greek, which was a pretty big deal out in the country, in addition to all the science and math. So they were celebrating the 20th anniversary, and Jesse showed up to help them. But he was always asking himself, what can we use the observation of a past victory for to get something done today? So, by the late 70s, all these medium-sized and little towns in the middle of the country were being flooded with drugs. All these folks were facing more vigorous law enforcement on the coast, but they were coming in. And I kept thinking, I know Jesse Jackson's going to know this, and he's going to say something. And I just want to be there. And I was a 29-year-old attorney general. And Hillary, a Chicago girl, was she was practicing law and supporting us because the salary was almost non-existent. So Jesse gets up in front of this crowd of kids, and their eyes were big as dollars. And he said, you owe a lot to the Little Rock Nine who integrated this school. You owe a lot to Daisy Bates and the other people who supported them. You owe a lot to the people who were there long before them. You cannot take this achievement and throw it away on drugs. And then he said, I'll never forget it. And I thought, where are all the conservatives when you need them to cheer? Jesse Jackson looked at these kids and he said, you have to open your brains, not your veins. And I thought to myself, no matter how long I live and stay in politics, I may never have a single line that's that good. I mean, think about it. It's totally brilliant. It captures personal responsibility and caring and self-survival. All these pastors here who've done such a great job on this, I know you spend endless hours when you're putting your sermons together and you're running your programs in your churches and things, what can we do that will work? And whenever I get discouraged, I think about Jesse and I just laugh. Well, you got to open your brains and not your veins. So 10 years later, I was living in the governor's mansion. And Jesse shows up for the 30th anniversary of the integration of Little Rock Central High School. By then, I become governor, and we bring all of them back to the governor's mansion because that's where Governor Faubus plotted to disenfranchise them and keep black people out of school. So we had a big dinner that night. And after the dinner was over, Hillary asked Jesse to hang around so we could talk. We went to the kitchen, put some more food on the counter, and talked till midnight. And Hillary said, you know, we all got to work tomorrow. I'm going to bed. 2 hours later, Jesse and I are still going about it. And she walks into the kitchen and throws us out. I'll never forget it. We did not always agree, but I'll tell you one thing. He made me a better president when I got in office. Because he was always pushing on things. And he knew that change came from the outside in and sometimes from the inside out. So he knew how to keep pushing and nagging and wearing you out. Right? Look at Governor Pritzker laughing here. I mean, it was like having a dog to the bone, you know. He was, I said one time when he was working on something in Africa, because I made him a special envoy for African diplomacy, I said, you know, we might ought to put Jesse on the list. And one of my said, only members of Congress are on that list. I know, but I said, I think we need to put him on anyway. And they said, so I had another guy who was there and said, what the list is? He said, it's a list of people that'll dog you to death until you do what they want you to do. So we just call it the Just Say Yes list. Put it on the Just Say Yes. It saves you so much time, and you can go on and do something else with your day. And I remember how impressed I was in 1988, before I became president, when Jesse and negotiated with Governor Dukakis and the other people at the Democratic Convention to end the exclusive primaries, which you talked about it, and the caucuses, and to open up the democratic process and add people, including Willie Barrow and Representative Maxine Waters, who became one of our senior leaders. I'm saying this to make another point. Everybody knows how eloquent he was, and everybody knows that he could talk an owl out of a tree. But he actually was interested in policy, in specifics. So that's the second thing I'd like to say. So what if you weren't big, tall, broad-shouldered, and eloquent like Jesse Jackson? If you want to make change, there's still plenty you could do if you've got an agenda. You've got to have it. He always had an agenda. So, that's the most important thing I could say to you. Now, one other thing I am going to say. Wordsworth, you don't think about Wordsworth when you think about Jesse. But Wordsworth said the last best hope of a good man's life are the little unremembered acts of kindness and love. So I used to think all the time about how hard Jesse's childhood must have been, with his mother and then having to go past his father's house and all that, and all the mixed up. And I knew a little about not nearly as severe a situation because of my situation. And I admired his mother. I was afraid of Jackie. I'd do whatever she said for the baby. But I love you so much. But I liked his mother. And he called me one day, and he said, this is purely personal, but my mother liked you, and I would really appreciate it if you would speak at her service. And he said, Andy Young's coming, and there aren't that many of us left anymore who are over 75 and have been through all this. And I said, I would be honored. I know this sounds funny, but it really meant something to me that he wanted me to talk at his mother's memorial service. And then, I don't think I've ever told anybody this. When the Congress was trying to run me out, and I was in that big impeachment fight, Jesse called me one night in the White House. I thought he was calling me. He said, I don't want to talk to you. I want you to go get Chelsea. Now keep in mind, he's got all this other stuff going on. We got all this stuff. He called me to talk to my daughter to make sure she had her head in the game. And he prayed with her on the phone. And, a lot of people, it would never even have occurred to them to do that. And ever since Hillary and I went to visit Jesse in the hospital and Jackie and a lot of the family were there, I've been thinking about him, calling my daughter. He didn't know if I was going to be president in 6 months. He didn't know what was going to happen. But he liked Chelsea. I thought showed he had good taste. But my point is, those are the things you remember. So I think we should honor him by saying, okay, maybe I'll never come up with a line like, open your brains and not your veins. Maybe I'll never give a speech that will move hundreds of thousands, but I can do something. I can still be somebody. And what should I do? And how can I, with whatever speaking ability I have or don't have, do what he did when he called Bill Clinton's daughter in a crisis? When he asked a friend, I know you may be busy and my mother's not famous, but would you please come say a few words? And Andy Young and I went, we both went, and we were there. So that's what I want all of you to think about when you leave here. This guy lived a big life. He lived with his head and with his heart. He was faithful to the scripture which said, we have all sinned and fallen short of the glory of God. But unlike a lot of people in politics, he didn't go around looking down his nose at other people. He hated the sin and not the sinner. He was always trying to lift people up. So I'm here more as a friend than a former president. He was my friend when I needed it. And I ask you to ask yourselves how you can do more by being a better friend and a more effective one. God bless you. Thank you.
That was former President Bill Clinton at the homegoing and celebration service of Reverend Jackson. I actually had the chance on a couple of occasions to meet Reverend Jackson, and I remember he spoke at an event where my father was honored years ago when I was a child. And I just remember that energy and kind of feeling like you were in the presence of greatness and of somebody who was not willing to compromise the things that mattered to them and was in the fight and had your back, and just the presence that he had. I spoke at that event. I remember I was getting ready to go up and speak, and he was standing there and held up his hand and was like, "Don't be scared, young man." And I was like, "Ooh, okay." Interesting presence, and everybody